the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Alderman Vaughn would like to say a word of prayer, and we'll observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our God and our Father, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, by the way of the Holy Spirit, Father God, again, we thank you so much. We thank you for being the almighty, all wise, all knowing, all powerful, all seeing, all hearing, all understanding God. But most of all, we thank you so much for allowing your angels to watch over us all day long and protected us all day. And thank you for just allowing us to be appointed back to this place to handle the city business, a place where you appointed each and every last one of us, the mayor and the board and the department heads. But God, we ask you that you would please forgive us of all our sins. We pray, Father God, we shall thank you so much for what all you have allowed us to achieve during this term. And we thank you for what you're allowing us to achieve going into the end of this term. We thank you because we know there's nothing that we could have done without you. We thank you for your guidance and your direction. But most of all, we thank you so much for your love that you gave out on Calvary, your only begotten beloved Son that was born of a Virgin Mary, who was crucified, died, and buried in 3 days, Father God. You raised him back from the dead. And we just thank you for the presence of him by the way of the Holy Spirit sitting on the right hand of you, making intercession for us right now as we try to handle these affairs. Lord, we give all praise and glory to you because of who you are and where you are. We thank you so much for being our God and we your servant. Most of all, we thank you for being our Father, and we are the children. Thank you again so much for controlling our destiny, not leaving us in the hand of man. We give all praise and honor and glory to you because of who you are and what you are. Father, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You have before you a written copy of the agenda. Before I open the floor for revisions, I have one change to offer, and that is in your listing of public hearings, one item was left off by mistake that will require a public hearing. It has been properly noticed but wasn't listed as a public hearing, and that is item 11B2C. Without objection, we'll add that to the listing of public hearings under Roman numeral 7.
Repeat that, Mr. Mayor, repeat that.
11B2C, discussion and consideration of RZ 1703. It should be public hearing and consideration of RZ 1703. Without objection, that will be added to the listing of public hearings. Seeing no objection, are there any proposed revisions from the board? Alderman Mayor.
I'd like to pull under Personnel H, number 2 and number 5.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Maynard is to pull items 11H2 and 11H5. Those are as follows. Request approval and adopt the job description for an assistant police chief, and discussion and consideration of adopting the job description for an assistant fire chief. Alderman Maynard, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none. Those two matters have been removed from the agenda. Alderman Maynard, do you have further proposed revisions?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I think when we get to it, I know Mr. Buddy Sanders has a travel request in. One of the items on that request falls into the next term. So I'm going to amend that at the table just to include the travel for this term and not for the next term.
All right, which item is that?
It is BL.
Item 11B2L.
Right.
the discussion and consideration of travel and training for Buddy Sanders to attend 3 of 4 core classes offered by the International Economic Development Council for certification. One of the 4 core classes, basic economic development, was completed in September 2016, with 2 additional classes to be required. Which classes do you wish to remove?
The November, Buddy, was it November?
Right, so the proposed revision from Alderman Maynard with respect to item 11B2L is to remove the request for approval of the November 2017 training session from consideration. Alderman Maynard, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, please note the change to your agenda and packet. Any further proposed revisions, Alderman Maynard?
No, sir.
Any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Alderman Walker.
I'd like to move items 11, 2A under planning, items 2A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J. The first items under mayor's business and reorder after that.
All right. So leaving item K.
And L.
Oh, and L. L was not completely removed. Correct. All right, the proposed revision from Alderman Walker is to reorder the agenda, placing the following items as the first items under mayor's business and reordering the items previously under mayor's business to follow these items. Item 11.2A, consideration of a special event request by the Starkville Area Arts Council. Item 11B2B, a public hearing and consideration of CU 1701. Item 11B2C, discussion and consideration of RZ 1703. Item 11B2D, public hearing and consideration of RZ 1701. Item 11B2E, public hearing and consideration of RZ 1702. Item 11B2F, discussion and consideration of PP 16-19. Item 11B2G, discussion and consideration of FP 1701. Item 11B2H, a public hearing and consideration of VA 1701. Item 11B2I, public hearing and consideration of VA 1702. And item 11B2J, public hearing and consideration of VA 1703. Alderman Walker, is that your proposed revision?
Yes.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, please note the change. Alderman Walker, do you have any further proposed revisions?
No.
Any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter before you is the consideration of the minutes of
Move
the
approval.
motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the minutes of the January 3rd, 2017 meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, incorporating any and all changes recommended by the city attorney, otherwise as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. We'll now move to announcements and comments by the mayor and members of the board. I have no comments this evening. Are there any announcements or comments by the members of the board? Alderman Voss.
Mr. Mayor, to the board and Mr. Mayor, this agenda, we control this agenda. You go look up on a plan, and you got 13 different items, And I brought this to the board 5 or 6 different times, and we sit here, we cry how long we be here, how long we gonna allow the community development guy to put all this up under this in one night. This is too much for one night, and we wanna cry how long we be here. But when we gonna stop him from doing this? There's 13 different items. That's too much. And we wanna cry how late we be here. Long we allow him to be here, long we allow him to do that, that's the longer we gonna be here. So let's stop complaining about how long we be here when we allow him to control our agenda. We shouldn't let him control our agenda. This is our agenda. I yield, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just want to respectfully state to you and to the colleagues and to others who are in attendance tonight, since we had our last meeting of this Mayor and Board of Alderman, one of my distinguished colleagues who served with me from 1993 to 1997, the late Mr. Wendell Gibson, of course, passed at some time during the time between that meeting, and he represented Ward 2 during my very first term, 93 to 97, and he at some point thereafter represented the city in many capacities, serving, including service as a member of the Starkville Park Commission. And as a result of that, Mr. Mayor, I would like for you to please, sir, on behalf of the city, at least tender a resolution or proclamation to the family of the late colleague who served so diligently for the city of Starkville. And I am also, Mr. Mayor, respectfully requesting for you to do whatever else, if anything, that you think we may need to do on behalf of the city, and hopefully at some point down the road we can look at a policy that will honor those who have worked so diligently and served so faithfully for our city. And of course, I enjoyed serving with Mr. Gibson during the 93-97 term. So I would have just been remiss, in my opinion, in my duties if I had not mentioned that. And so I just want to extend my deepest sympathy to the family of the late Mr. Wendell Gibson. And if you would just take that into consideration, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Well said, Vice Mayor, and we will contact Ms. Gibson tomorrow and begin work on getting the family proclamation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I've got Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Carver.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Yes, our agenda is very lengthy tonight, but I think a lot of it is that we have been out for a very extended period of time. When we don't have a consent agenda, there's a cost factor to our city, not to us as aldermen, but we have a sergeant at arms who's outside of our door, and his salary is a little bit probably more than $20 an hour. So, and he has to be paid. If we had a consent agenda, we could certainly reduce that. And by all means, I respect him. He's my uncle. But having said that, I represent Ward 2, and it's all about savings. So we have to pay that sergeant at arms. Again, if we could just have a consent agenda sometime, it would reduce all of this. This is very lengthy. We're looking at about 4 or 5 hours. After you've been here for a while, it gets to be very tedious and mistakes can be made. When you all are gone, we have executive session with very, very sensitive information that we have to deal with. I yield the floor, Mayor.
Alderman Carver.
Alderman Vaughn, for the sake of constituents tonight, would you be in favor of a consent agenda?
Object.
For the constituents in Ward 6, I'd like to add on page 3, under Mayor's Business, item G, consideration of the warranty deed to consent agenda.
Object.
All right, hearing an objection, that matter will remain on the open agenda.
Under Mayor's Business, item I to consent.
Proposed revision by, all right, at this point, the agenda's been adopted, so a motion has been made by Alderman Carver to add item 9I, the consideration of the warranty deed facilitating the dedication and acceptance of Roundhouse Road as a public road in the city of Starkville, Mississippi, to the consent agenda. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Object.
I
Do I hear
yield
a
the floor.
second?
I yield.
All right, hearing no second, motion dies for lack of a second. Any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Kay Brocato, and I know many of you on the Board of Aldermen. I live in Vice Mayor Roy Perkins' district, and I am well-served in my community in my area, but we've been working with a developer in the city on some zoning specifics, and that's gone well. But I wanted to make the aldermen aware of an issue that came up prior to the rezoning. A house in our neighborhood that is zoned residential estate, or RE, was sold to a business, and that marks sort of a pattern in that kind of business deal in the city. The deal was similar to the one that was attempted appropriately above board on top of the table with the Josie House over on Yellow Jacket Drive. And you all took care of that with good thought and made a good decision on that. But our house in our neighborhood went ahead and was sold to a business. And so we are working together with that business owner to try to then have that property change hands again and be owned by a single family as the neighborhood is designed. But I didn't know if you all were aware that that had happened prior to the rezoning, and I wanted to make each alderman aware. Of course, Vice Mayor Perkins may have told you all about it, but I want to go on record as a citizen and for my neighborhood association to let that be known. Anytime there's a struggle to communicate, they send me, because I'm comfortable working through some tough things, and having worked with y'all on some tough things, I think you know that about me. So I'm going to stay positive and proactive and keep Starkville a great community to live in, and I want to be a partner with y'all, and I want to enlist you guys as partners with every single neighborhood to be what the best it can be, even if that means a change. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
McCarthy.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Adam Turner, Ward 7. To the Vice Mayor Perkins,
Thank you, Mr.
Alderman Vaughn, Alderman Walker.
Thank you, Alvin.
To the NACP President Taylor and the Vice President Turner. Citizens have a few concerns, and the election is one. We'll be running a tight shift. The chairman of the election commissioner, the election is, the chairman is Mr. Al Gore. The secretary is Ms. Patty Dreffer. We would like for everyone that's running to let do things decent, to where that we will be on top of things and won't be any slip up. We would also like to hope that MDOT have looked at the situation that I spoke about at last meeting, because with weather changing and blind spots, we definitely wouldn't want nobody to get hit again by accident. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Are there any further citizen comments?
How y'all doing? Hi, my name is Mr. Jesse Collier, and I came here tonight to correct an error that's been made by the city of Starkville of proper interest with my property, and some things, other things that happened, and I came to y'all to ask y'all to correct this problem. As a concerned father of my kids who were denied of a public education for 7 months. I asked y'all to tell them, I come to ask y'all where was I located at. And y'all sent everybody out there, the city administrator, commissioner, and so many people out, and everybody came out, and they said that I was not in the city. Well, they was correct, they was wrong, it's incorrect. And I will provide my alderman with the proper procedure showing that I was annexed into the city in 1998. Because the 1990 annexation had to go through the U.S. Justice Department, which whom I contact. And they provided me with the document. They provided me with the document that said the information that the city of Starkville gave to the ACLU and all them is incorrect. It's interpretation of the law. By the error map that Jim Hood had in his office in Jackson, Mississippi, my resident is within the city of Starkville. This is within the city limit of Starkville. Since then, can't vote, don't pick up the trash, got my kids back into school, corrupted my kids who I had focused on education, then just change their whole focus on the education. But I asked y'all back in a while back to correct this issue before this happened. But nobody will help me correct this issue. Everybody that I went to, no, Mr. Carter, you're not in the city. You went annexed into the city in 1998. Well, if you come out to my residence right now, where y'all, whoever, the city sanitation department, whoever came out and put a sign say, the city limit here, the county's right here. Put an iron rod there. Took 20 years to put that iron rod there to indicate where I was, but which is false. If you walk down from that iron rod, where the U.S. Justice Department had an engineer to come out of Birmingham and take this annex paper. 1 minute. Okay, and taking this annex paper, they marked it off. From the point where my house is, where that mark is, from down to the end of that road, my house is in the city limit. And I asked y'all to correct this, because there's been a problem over the years. And I've been here, just make my third trip in to get this correct. And if you want to, if y'all don't mind, I'll give him the annex paper. I got documents for days to indicate that I'm in the city limit. And all I ask y'all to do to correct it. If we can't correct it here, I guess we have to go elsewhere. But as a citizen of Starkville, I asked the governing body to correct this info. We have to go elsewhere with it.
Thank you, Mr. Collier.
Okay.
Further citizen comments?
To the mayor and vice mayor and to all the members of the Board of Aldermen. My name is William Paul Ellis, and tonight I am here on behalf of the Starkville Mayor's Youth Council. Will all the members of the Mayor's Youth Council please stand? So we're all just really excited to be here tonight. Just to let you guys know some of the things that we've been doing. We've been able to host a clothes drive for the community, as well as help with the OSERV's fundraiser banquet. We have a lot of things coming up that we'll be letting you guys know about, particularly to support a scholarship fund that we're starting for some youth in the community. So we thank you for your support, and we hope, and also we'll be going to the State Mayor's Youth Council Convention next month in Cleveland, Mississippi. So we thank you for all your support, and we hope that you continue to support us in all of our endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Members of the council, we look forward to, again, having the best delegation at the Mayor's Youth Council Conference in Cleveland this spring. Any further citizen comments?
All right, my name is Chris Taylor, Ward 7. I have 3 things. Number 1, item 10A. I'm getting ready to go to Starkville High basketball game because it's senior night, last home game, so I won't be able to stick around because y'all got a long agenda. 10A, will the landfill be open? Because we overworking them folks and trash being thrown all over the city.
No. Currently, the space that we have available at the landfill is full. We're going through a permitting process with DEQ. When that process is complete, we will be able to open additional space at the landfill.
So we talking about what, months, years, or what?
It's uncertain, but at least months.
Okay, number 2. Now, as the city accepts the roads, does the fund come out of the Alderman discretionary fund or the city pay for it?
Well, Could you
roads,
state that one more time?
you know, if the city incorporate the roads, you know, roads have been incorporated for years.
Right.
Okay, now they're gonna be, city gonna finally pave them.
Right.
Does the money come out of the Alderman fund or the city fund?
It depends. Frankly, it depends historically how the board is allocating its resources for capital improvements. There have been times in the recent past where the board has adopted a street program as a whole. There have been times in the more recent past where the board has chosen to divide funds for street improvements amongst the 7 wards, and that's how most funds are allocated. However, the board does still leave some money in its capital improvement budget for discretionary funding citywide of streets. But as of late, the vast majority of street work has been funded through discretionary funds allocated to each ward.
Well, if I was an Alderman, I'll say that's unfair because I need my funds for other things. Okay, and third, now this is for Scott Maynard. The progression in order to get a pay raise in the city, right? That's what they worked out. We'll take the sanitation department, for instance. If I come in with a Class C license and he don't have one, will I be his supervisor?
I'd have to have the plan in front of me, sir, to look at it, but not necessarily. You might have to have a Class C license to operate equipment. That wouldn't necessarily put you in a position to be a supervisor. It may put you in a position to get promoted eventually, that you would end up in a supervisor role. But to not have specifics of exactly who it is, how long they've been here, what role they're currently in.
Okay, just say I'm making $12 an hour and Alderman Vaughn get hired, he got all the license, he got everything. Will he come in making more money than I have, and I've been there for 15 to 20 years?
He could potentially. It's
See?
based on
Right, that's what I'm
skills
talking
mastery.
about. Right, and that's,
But that's not necessarily supervisory responsibilities.
I know, but he
The
gonna come.
first 6 categories under the plan are based on skills mastery, and it does not necessarily mean you'll be supervising different people. It does mean, for instance, when you move from a Class C license to a Class B license, and then to a Class B license to a Class A license, each time you upgrade your license and you master the other skills required, you're eligible for a pay raise. But it doesn't mean you'll get additional supervisory responsibility.
Okay, but that means that if I don't have it, I've been there for 15, 20 years, you're gonna make more than me.
If I have the skills and you don't have the skills, then I would be eligible for the pay and you would not be eligible for the pay.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Taylor, the whole purpose behind that and the thing that we've heard as this board, and also that we've seen citywide, countywide, statewide, is that if people are willing to continue their education, then they should be rewarded for the skills they obtain. We had a situation in sanitation, for instance, where people were not able to get promoted because they didn't have the skills necessary to get to the next level, and we wanted to resolve that. So we wanted to put a plan in place so people could advance their careers, could make more money over the long run. That's the whole purpose of that plan. Now, when you're trying to compare somebody going to come in higher than me, if you go to the next level and get your next license, as the mayor said, then you would be in line for that promotion.
But I got a problem with reading and writing and understanding. Remember, everyone we hired in the city, not on the same level, or education level as everyone else. That's all I'm saying.
Most of the requirements are not written. It's not until you get to the highest level of equipment operator that the work keys test comes into play, which the work keys test is related to industrial type job functions, but most of the requirements relate to things such as proper licensure for the job.
Okay.
You know, for instance, there is a very big difference in what someone is able to do on a job for the city when they have a Class B license or a Class A license as compared to a Class C license. And the problem that we've run into operationally is in some cases, we have very few people that can operate the equipment necessary to do the job. So this is intended to be an incentive to have many equipment operators that can operate the various pieces of equipment that are necessary for the job function to be done.
Okay. All right, just voice my opinion.
Yes, sir. Any further citizen comments?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board, I am Pam Waldrop, and we live in North Starkville. We do live in the county, but I would like to echo our concerns also about the landfill situation. We have, of course, a transient young population with the university, and in North Starkville, we have experienced dumping quite a bit over the years, and we would just like to express our need for urgency on this matter and offer our assistance if there's anything that we could do to speed up the process with the DEQ. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waldrop, and I assure you we will move the process as fast as we possibly can, but the ultimate outcome is not in our hands.
Thank you.
Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearances. We have 2 public appearances scheduled tonight. The first is by Mr. Robert Leslie with Atmos Energy. Mr. Leslie, you will have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and then I ask that you remain for any questions or comments that members of the board may have when you've completed it.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm Robert Leslie. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Atmos Energy. I'm based in Jackson. I've brought with me Monty McCaleb, Operations Manager, also from Jackson, and in the audience we've got Wade Schulteis and Ken Smith, who are from our office here in Starkville. What we're here to do today is to talk a little bit about what's going on with Atmos Energy in Starkville and give you an idea about what's coming up also, and how things are going to be a little different in the future as far as communicating what we're doing here today. You see over there a map of an area of Starkville that we have currently been working on. I think it started in October. It's a $2 million project to basically replace the gas infrastructure in that area. The existing infrastructure is safe. I mean, there's no problem with it. It's just that most of that infrastructure dates back to about the 1940s. It's a good 70 years old, and it's just time to replace it. And so we have come in. It's about a $2 million project. We're replacing the main lines. We're replacing service lines going to the houses to about 300 homes in the area. Total value about $2 million. And like I say, we're doing it just because it's time to replace this. These gas lines and these services. We're doing projects like this all around the state. I've had some questions about it, people asking me what's going on, is it just Starkville? No. We are doing these projects, as Monty can tell you, because he oversees a lot of them. We're doing them in Jackson, we're doing them in Meridian, we've got more coming up in this area in Amory, in West Point, and we've got another one coming up in Starkville probably in mid-year. And so like I say, one of the things that we're doing going forward, there seemed to be some confusion as to what we were doing and why we were doing it. So we're going to be stepping up communication as far as what we're doing. And like I say, Monty, if you'll, what we're going to do is we're going to start putting in. We're going to start marking a lot of the equipment. Most of the work being done here is being done by Miller Pipeline. It doesn't say Atmos Energy on it, and so people kind of get confused as to why this company that I don't recognize is working in our area. We're going to be putting up signage, both yard signs and bigger signs, just talking about what we're doing, who's doing it. Like I say, it's going to be specific to Starkville in many cases, and just giving people a better idea of what we're doing. And as far as why we're doing it, like I say, we're doing it all around the state. We're doing it right now basically because gas prices are so low that we can do a lot of work in a lot of areas, and you won't even notice the impact on your bill. I don't know if people around here, y'all have probably heard about shale gas and the shale gas revolution going on in the country today. And like I say, natural gas prices are lower than they were 9 years ago. And so since natural gas prices normally are the vast majority of your gas bill, since they're so low, we can come in and make these replacements and give, like I say, areas of Starkville pretty much a new gas system, and your gas bill is still going to be lower than it was 8 years ago. And so it's just the time is right. It's a great time to do this, and we're taking full advantage of it, not only in Starkville, but like I say, in other parts of the state. The next area we're going to be working, we've got a map here going forward. Like I say, it's going to be another area of Starkville, kind of northeast of here. Like I say, Monty's going to hand you the map so you can see. And like I say, we're going to have that signage in place. We're going to do, I think, a better job of communicating with city officials and the city public works department on what's going on, when it's going on, just so we can have so that people can know what's going on, because this is good news. This is a good thing, and we just want the people of Starkville to know that it is a good thing. So, Monty, am I forgetting anything?
I cross your line to the industrial park.
Oh, and also, you probably heard about the industrial park north of Starkville. The latest on that, I've had some questions about that. We're doing a right-of-way acquisition for that, but that's in 2017. We had thought we might start work on a pipeline. It's about a 12-mile pipeline that runs in Clay County and Oktibbeha County. We had thought earlier that we were going to start on the Clay County part with actual pipeline construction, but the latest I've heard about that is now we are just focusing on land and right-of-way acquisition, just so that in case industries do come to the park, we'll have clear title to go ahead and be able to put a pipeline in. So that's my presentation, I guess. To any question, I want to make sure I give you all time for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie, and we are most appreciative for the work you and Atmos are doing in this community. Let's see, Alderman Carver.
I was going to say publicly, just thank you for the Scale Street is a street that we had repaved, and then wasn't a timing issue, but right afterward had the patches, I guess, where it's about an 8-foot section right at the curb. I thank y'all, and I thank Edward Kemp, our city engineer. Y'all did come back in and repave whole sections of it, so I appreciate it. You didn't have to do that. The only other thing I might say is just the timeline that it took might have been a little longer than we like, but it's part of the work. But thank you for coming in and fixing that job. So.
Well, like I say, I should have done this a long time ago. So, because like I say, it's a good story. It's a great story. So, any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Leslie? Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Sure, Mr. Lovely.
Bill Pipeline is doing the construction.
Yes, sir.
They are perhaps the sloppiest company I've ever seen in my neighborhood. I spoke to the city engineer about problems that were not corrected. They're still uncorrected. They've come in, they broke up the sidewalk, they just patched it, but they didn't do anything to the landscape that they disrupted. Who can I talk to about getting them on the ball and getting things done that they need to do in our community?
You can talk to us. All right, we'll get it done.
Okay. Do you want to know where it is?
Yeah. We'll let them continue, and I'll get the address.
Yeah, we'll let these. Okay. And like I said, that's one of the reasons I left my card with everybody. If y'all hear other constituents that are having situations like that, please let us know, because yes, sir.
Other than going through our city engineer, would we ever contact you personally on your cell phone if it was just?
Sure. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Thank you.
I would also add that on these signs, it's going to have the website, which takes you to site-specific information for the Starkville, and it actually has a local contact number that reaches straight into Wade Schulteis's phone. Citizens, customers can leave messages there if he is not able to answer, and we can get those things taken care of quickly.
Also, from a communication standpoint, I think y'all have about a week out policy to let the city know maybe upcoming where you're gonna be. And I know it can change. Is there any way that we could forecast that further out? And secondly, maybe what would be the best case scenario for letting homeowners know? I know on Greensboro Street, we've had a lot of complaints, but what would be a better option or a better way just to inform the public maybe?
That's a very good question. I mean, I don't mean to sound flippant about that, because I'm in the communications business, and how to reach homeowners. The stuff that worked really well just a few years ago, doesn't work as well now. I mean, like we're looking into things like using email more, and maybe using like local newspapers even more. I mean, it's just we are working. Feel free to contact me when we can. I'd love to talk to you about that, because like I say, the communications world changes constantly, and like I say, some old-fashioned ways that still work beautifully, like door tags. These door tags that we try to hang on everybody's door almost always work. But if somebody doesn't use the front door, that's who we hear from. And so, like I say, it's some people, like I've got friends and I'm sure y'all do too, the only thing they respond to is Facebook. Sometimes you can call people on a cell phone, they won't call you back. You can text them, they respond right away. And like I say, because that's an interesting situation these days. Yes, sir.
Probably just because we're a university town, I say probably the biggest part of that is the door hangers are there, but if it's a renter and it's a rental house and the homeowners call us later and, hey, what's going on? But thank you for your call. We'll be calling you.
Okay.
So thank you.
Alderman Mayor.
One other area, I know you're getting ready to start in North Starkville, where I am, coming right down my street actually, but we have in our neighborhood, Octavia Hall Gardens, and also in Plantation Homes, a internal software called Nextdoor, which we can communicate with a wide
I'm familiar with
variety.
Nextdoor. My name shows up on Nextdoor frequently, so.
that for us, that's a great communication tool.
See, and that's one of the things we've been talking about back at the office, is like, how do we one of the things that we need to start doing is finding out if there is a Nextdoor in the neighborhood. So yeah, we'll be on Nextdoor.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our next public appearance is by Kenneth Assad. Mr. Assad, you'll have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and I ask that you remain for any questions or comments the board may have when you finish.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and Alderman, thank you for giving me a few minutes to express a few issues that I feel you need to be made aware of and that I feel require your attention. For just a little background, you may recall my company, Grassroots Aviation Incorporated, operated the FBO in Starkville from March 15 to 29 February 2016. During that time, we never had any negative complaints. We only had very positive comments, internet reviews on flight planning programs. We were responsible for welcoming numerous dignitaries, congressmen, governors, ambassadors to Starkville, treating all travelers with the greatest respect and courtesy. Our business exceeded all expectations, and even budget rental cars reported they had their best year ever. On the 2nd of February 2016, you, the Board of Aldermen, canceled our lease, giving us a 90-day notice to wind down our business and close our doors. We closed all of our accounts, our phone service, we sold our inventory, we closed our doors as directed on 29 February 2016. Even up until that day, every customer who needed fuel was able to buy it from Grassroots Aviation. On 18 February 2016, I notified the airport manager that Grassroots Aviation last day in Starkville would be 29 February 2016, to which the airport manager replied, "Who's going to sell fuel?" To show how much goodwill Grassroots Aviation has toward the city of Starkville, Grassroots Aviation put together an interim proposal to sell fuel during the transition to a new FBO. Your airport board rejected this proposal, and again, on 29 February 2016, Grassroots Aviation closed all accounts, including its credit card processing account, even mailing the credit card processing machine back to the vendor. I would now like to make you aware of several issues that have surfaced since Grassroots has closed its doors on 29 February 2016. On the 2nd of December 2016, I received a phone call from a gentleman questioning why Grassroots Aviation has billed his credit card during the months of April, August, September, and October 2016 for a total of $131.57. I informed him that I was unaware, but I would research the issue and asked him to do the same. This gentleman called back several minutes later to state the issue was he swiped his credit card at the self-serve fuel terminal at the Starkville Airport. He stated that the airport manager knew and was aware that people buying fuel at the Starkville Airport were getting bank statements indicating they were being billed by Grassroots Aviation. This airport manager is reported as stating that he was unable to change anything until the board met on a Tuesday night. I contacted all three companies involved in the processing of credit cards while Grassroots Aviation was at Starkville. Imagine my shock and dismay when Ms. Karen Bain of QT called me to explain that she had discovered the city of Starkville had been processing credit card transactions using my old account that had been reactivated in March of 2016, just weeks after I had closed it. Mrs. Bain indicated she had just called the Starkville Airport manager, who stated he did not want the Grassroots Aviation account closed, that he needed some type of board approval. I directed Ms. Bain to again stop the use of my credit card account by the close of business on the 2nd of December, which she did, but only by having to threaten the airport manager with shutting off the fuel terminal. I contacted Ms. Lynn Warehouser of Eastern Aviation Fuels. Mrs. Warehouser stated she had no control over the fuel terminal, but she was aware the Starkville airport manager was using my credit card processing account. Mrs. Warehouser stated it was a weekly phone call to try to get the airport manager to stop using the Grassroots Aviation account. Mrs. Warehouser works closely with QT Pod and stated Mr. Bill Eckert of QT and herself, in her exact words, had hounded and badgered the airport manager to stop using the account of Grassroots Aviation to process credit cards.
Mayor, I move that we enter into executive session.
You can't go directly into executive session, but we can go into a closed session. Is that
I
your
move
motion?
that we go into a closed session at this time.
Motion has been made by Alderman Nguyen to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Nguyen, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes. At this time, Mr. Assand, ask you to suspend your presentation while the board goes into closed session. And for the public, I'll ask you to please exit the room so that the board can begin closed session deliberations to determine whether the board took no action in executive session. The next matter on the agenda is a public hearing on item 11-2B2, or excuse me, item 11-2B2B. No, that's not right. 11B2B. He doesn't have. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. 11-2B8. I'm sorry. 11B2A. The consideration of a special event request by Starkville Area Arts Council to hold the 2017 Cotton District Arts Festival and have participation of in-kind services. Discussion.
Same move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve a special event request by the Starkville Area Arts Council to hold the 2017 Cotton District Arts Festival and have city participation in in-kind services as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Wait, I still took that out of order. That should come under mayor, because we're under public hearings now. Right. Those are public hearings. And then, all right, I took that out of order. that should have been the first item under mayor's business, and I took it under public hearing. Without objection, we're not going to revisit that matter. Just recognize that I did deviate from the agenda. All right, the next matter on the agenda is item 11B2B, and we are in public hearings at this point in time. So all of the following matters will be public hearings. This is a public hearing and consideration of, and we've got these listed as public hearing and consideration of, so we'll hear the public hearing and then we'll move directly into the consideration as soon as the public hearing is concluded. Public hearing and consideration of CU 1701, a request for conditional use to allow a single-family dwelling to be constructed at 731 Whitfield Street. Mr. Sanders, would you like to introduce?
Yes, Mr. Hamlin, would you make the presentation, please?
This is a request by Roger Price on behalf of Xavier Yates for a conditional use to allow a single-family dwelling at 731 Whitfield Street to be constructed on a parcel that is currently zoned C2 with the property number 102C-00-214.00. In order to construct a house in a C2 zone, a conditional use is required. A home was previously located on the property. There are 5 criteria for conditional uses. The first one, land use compatibility. The proposed use is compatible with adjacent property. The 2016 comprehensive plan has the areas listed as a commercial type use of suburban center. 2, sufficient site size and adequate site specification to accommodate the proposed use. The site is adequately sized to accommodate the proposed use. 3, proper use of mitigative techniques. There are none proposed. 4, hazardous waste. No hazardous waste or materials would be generated, used, or stored on the site. And 5, compliance with applicable laws and ordinances. Building permits will be required after this. 21 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing notice was published in the Starkville Daily News on December 22nd, 2016, and a sign was posted on the property concurrent with publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received 1 phone call inquiring about the request. On January 10th, 2017, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval of CU 17-01.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Mayor.
Is there a driveway to that?
Yes, there is. It's actually a shared drive right there.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Mayor.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board?
Just
Alderman
want
Walker.
to put a bow, tie up Alderman Maynard's comment just a little bit. So that lot has an agreed shared access agreement for that driveway. So there's no access issues with this. Is the subject lot large enough to accommodate a single-family detached dwelling with the associated parking associated with it?
Yes, this is the house plan that they're planning on using, and taking the house plan and imposing it over the lot. There's plenty of room
To accommodate setbacks that would be equivalent to R2, R3, or what?
The setbacks for the. I think it's the setbacks for C2. C2 zone. Yes, the building area that they're showing is 30-foot front, 30-foot rear, and 15 on the sides. So that would be large enough to accommodate these.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on the proposed conditional use may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll move now into discussion. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of CU 1701, a request for conditional use to allow a single-family dwelling to be constructed at 731 Whitfield Street on a parcel that is currently zoned C2 with the property number 102C-00-214.00 as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a public hearing and consideration of RZ 1703. Mr. Sanders, would you like to introduce?
This is a request by Saunders Ramsey on behalf of Robert Wright to rezone the northern portion of one lot located on the east side of North Montgomery from C1 to RE with the property number 117E-00-018.00. The property to the north is currently zoned C1 and is used as a church. The property to the west is also C1, is a C-store gas station. The property to the east is zoned RE and is currently single-family residential. And the property to the south is zoned R5 and is multifamily residential. Now, as part of this request, you're going to hear the rezoning case for this piece to the north, then the piece to the south, and then immediately following will be the preliminary and final plat to actually make this lot split. So in here, when we state that it's R5, we're looking at the lot as it currently is, so it's the R5 down here. 39 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing was noticed in the Starkville Daily News on December 22nd, 2016, and a sign was posted on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning officer received no phone calls against. Rezoning can only take place if one of the following conditions prevail: error or change in the condition. On January 10th, 2017, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the zoning request 4-0, citing change of condition and public need.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, at this time, we'll hear any comments any members from the public may have on the matter. You may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Are there any comments? Any comments? Any comments? City attorney's asked to make a comment.
Can somebody enumerate change in need, whether that comes from city staff or the applicant?
One of the things that was cited in the report is there's been 4 rezonings within approximately a half mile of subject property since 2011. Would you like me to read them off? October of 2011, the cottages at Creekside was rezoned to a PUD for residential use. In October of 2014, 4 lots of Plantation Homes subdivision were rezoned C2 to commercial. In July of 2015, the property at the northwest corner of the intersection of Garrett and Old West Point Road was rezoned B1 buffer for residential use. On February 2016, the property east of the cottages at Creekside was rezoned to R3A for residential use.
And is that staff's recommendation of evidence of change?
Yes.
And is there evidence of public need?
Is there anything cited?
Nothing was cited by the planning and zoning.
My name's Saunders Ramsey, applicant on behalf of Plight Bearers. One of the things we just discussed at the planning and zoning hearing and was then voted on and agreed with was the need for residential estate lots, that they don't exist inside the city limits very often. The neighborhood there has been very successful, fully built out, and as you can tell with the success of the rezoning, the popularity of the residential area and of that area of town, we feel like more residential estate zoning would be appropriate and needed by the public.
Do you have any further questions or comments?
I do not. Thank you.
All right, we're now in discussion.
I have one. If this were to be rezoned an RE lot, again, would the size of the lot accommodate all the requirements of an RE lot in terms of lot size, accommodate setbacks, access, et cetera?
I believe yes.
So it meets or exceeds the current conditions of what we require for an RE lot to be.
Yes, it would be.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Are we out of public hearing? We still in public?
We are in discussion, out of the public hearing.
Mayor, have you recognized?
You may.
Mayor, I'd move approval of RZ 1701, a request to rezone the southern portion of the one lot located on the eastern side of North Montgomery to R5, property number 117E-00-018.00, with the recommended conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of RZ 1701, a rezoning request to rezone the,
1703. 01.
oh, excuse me.
I'm on the wrong one.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of RZ 1703, a rezoning request to rezone the northern portion of the lot located on the eastern side of North Montgomery from C1 to RE with the property number 117E-00-018.00 as presented with the conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
Yes, sir. I just want to thank Saunders and his team for working with that neighborhood and educating them and getting them fully understanding exactly what was taking place there. That was a big help, and I appreciate that. That's all, Mayor.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter before you is a public hearing and consideration of RZ 1701. Mr. Sanders, would you like to introduce?
RZ 17-01, this is a request by Saunders Ramsey on behalf of Light Bearers Ministry to rezone the southern portion of one lot located on the eastern side of North Montgomery from C1, R5, and RE to R5 with the property number of 117E-00-018.00. Property to the north is currently zoned C1, is used as a church. Property to the west is zoned C1, is used as a C-store, gas station. Property to the east is zoned RE and is currently single-family residential. And property to the south is R5 and is currently multi-family residential. And as I was saying before, this is the southern portion of the same lot. This is the one that is RZ 17-03. 39 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property are notified directly by mail. Public hearing notice was published in Starkville Daily News on December 22nd, 2016. The sign was placed on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received no phone calls against. The rezoning can only take place if the following conditions prevail: error or change in condition. This subject property was split zone C1, R5, and RE. The split zoning first appeared in the 8291 Starkville zoning map. The zoning does not follow past or current property lines. On January 10th, 2017, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning request 4-0 with 3 conditions citing error due to split zoning. Condition number 1, 45 feet undisturbed naturally occurring buffer along the east side of the property adjacent to the RE parcels. That would be along here. Condition number 2, the maximum building height be limited to 3 stories. And condition number 3, the maximum unit count per building be limited to 8 units.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman
I
Walker.
have a question. I think I'm fine with the recommended conditions and moving forward here. The question that I do have, could you go back to that one, the last condition? Just to, again, to make sure, since I wasn't there for planning and zoning, what the intent was. It says maximum unit count per building to be limited to 8 units. Is that 8 apartments or is that 8 beds?
This was a condition that was worked out between the applicant and the adjacent landowners.
For me, it's pretty important to know the difference between, are you talking about dwelling unit or beds? Because it can be 8 units, but I can have 4 beds per unit. So you're talking about the difference between, you know, what are we talking about in terms of bed numbers here? What is the intent of this, so we can tighten that up?
The intent was, working with the property owners, that we did not want 1 or 2 massive buildings. And the applicant, Light Bearers, usually builds buildings that are 3 stories tall, 4 units, that may have 10 to 12 bedrooms total. When we started talking about making a condition, meaning, you know, you cannot do any more than this, without knowing the site topography and knowing the exact site plan and all of that, they were a little worried to say 4 only. So, long way of saying that the units could each hold more than 1 bedroom. So, and that is how it was explained to them. The goal is to limit it from being a 100-bedroom, you know, building, massive structure. So,
And I guess I just want to make sure that the language is, that it says right there, it says 8 units. It doesn't say how many bedrooms you can have per unit. Is there a limiting factor in our R5 zoning that talks about the number of bedrooms per the code?
Based on, give me 1 second.
just so you're aware, I know this doesn't change the fact that we need to clarify the language and make everybody feel comfortable. The goal is not to have 8 units in every building, it's to have fewer than that. But again, this early in the design, we didn't want to limit it.
Yeah, it's 1 unit per 1,800 square feet of lot is the limiting factor.
So that's a unit count.
I would just, if it gets to the point where we're looking to tag this, I would consider tagging 8 units, not to exceed 4 bedrooms per
I think
unit.
that's
So you're
fair.
talking 32 people per building.
As we have in the past, I'd like to make sure that the adjoining neighbors feel comfortable with that. Mr. Brocato, do you feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the neighborhood? Those were the numbers that we were working with. Is it okay for me to address them? I don't know the rules. Sure. It is. And again, that would be obviously the maximum number, but the intention would be
Maximum.
less than that.
Do we know the number of buildings?
Without an architectural site plan, not
But I would say in this case, Assistant City Planner, if we say the maximum building count can exceed 8 units or maximum of 32 people per building, the ultimately, the however many buildings they can have on that'll be what the code says, correct?
Yeah, they're per code, without any limitations, at 6.53 acres, it's 158 units in an R5.
So that's gross. I don't think
Yeah,
you're gonna
that's not gonna
have,
happen.
you're not gonna have probably that many. But I do think it would be important to just tighten that language up just a little bit, so when it is time for review, that everybody's on the same page.
Is that a condition you would like the applicant to be placed in writing, or is
Yes,
that?
please.
Yeah. I think we're comfortable with the condition being adding of 4 bedrooms per unit, maximum of 8 units. Can that be added at the table?
Yeah, the board doesn't have a motion for
Gotcha.
consideration.
Okay, is that all?
Are there any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Seeing none, at this time, any member of the public wishing to come forward and speak on this matter may do so by introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone now wishing to speak? Anyone now wishing to speak? Anyone now wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll move into the discussion of RZ 1701. Mr. Alderman Maynard.
Mayor, I move approval of RZ 1701, a request to rezone the southern portion of the 1 lot located on the eastern side of North Montgomery to R5 with a property number 117E-00-018-00 to include the recommended conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would edit condition number 3 to say maximum unit count per building to be limited to 8 units with no more than 4 bedrooms per unit.
All right, the motion made by Alderman Maynard is the approval of RZ 1701, a rezoning request to rezone the southern portion of one lot located in the eastern side of North Montgomery from C1 to R5, or to C1 R5 and RE to R5, with the property number 117E-00-018.00 as presented, and with the conditions as recommended by P&Z, with the following change to condition number 3. And Alderman Maynard, was the change to that it be limited to 8 units and 4 beds per unit?
That's correct, Mayor.
Right. And the city attorney's asked to be recognized.
Alderman Maynard, does your motion adopt the grounds and recommendations of the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission that this rezoning fixes the error in the split zoning?
Yes, it does.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on this?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a public hearing in consideration of RZ 1702. Mr. Sanders?
This is a request by Harless and Company to rezone one lot located at 114 North Montgomery Street from C2 to T5 with the property number 117M-00-157.00. The subject property rezoning request is from C2 to T5. The property to the north is zoned T5 and is a multifamily residential. The property to the east is zoned T5 and is currently multifamily residential. The property to the west is zoned C2 and is currently multifamily residential and a church. The property to the south is zoned T5 and is currently multifamily residential. 12 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing notice was published in the Starkville Daily News on December 22nd, 2016, and a placard was posted on the property concurrent with publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received no phone calls against this request. A rezoning can only take place if one of the following conditions prevail. An error, there is no error, change in condition. On January 12th, 2012, the Board of Alderman adopted form-based code for Mississippi Highway 182, Main Street, University Drive, Lampkin Street, and Russell Street. As a result, 84 parcels were rezoned to either T District or Civic District. The subject parcel is adjacent to a T5 district parcel to the north and is currently planned to be developed with the parcel to the north as one project. On March 15th, 2016, one parcel on Hartness Street was rezoned from R3 to T5. On August 8th, 2016, one parcel at 116 North Montgomery was rezoned from C2 to T5. On January 10th, 2017, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval for this request based on change in condition.
I'll be recognized.
Questions or comments by the members of the board? Alderman Maynard?
It's my understanding that all of the property bordering this piece of property is zone T5.
Correct.
And the other piece that's zone C2 is across the street. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments by the Alderman Walker?
I'm going to be supporting this change in zoning tonight, and my intention to support this change in zoning tonight from C2 to T5 where this is. While tonight we're having a number of zoning issues that aren't asking for a T district, over the past several months we've had an increase in that, and I think that there's a lot of merit for why we would be looking at that. And I would say, and I've talked on multiple occasions about why it should be T4 or T5. I think this case is the right one. T5, you'll have on a major corridor as opposed to being on an interior block of a neighborhood, whereas before I argued against T5 going to T4. This is the opposite of that. This is clearly on a major corridor where T5 would be the correct zoning. I just think it's important as we move forward from both city staff and bringing developers in that we have to be very clear up front when they come in of what it is that they're asking or expecting to develop, and to know that a zoning change isn't a right. It's not going to, you're not going to accept a zoning change to be speculative. I'm going to buy this property if it can get rezoned. sometimes we let the cart get ahead of the horse a little bit right there. I think we need to pull that back and make sure we're following the rules as closely as possible. In this case, I think TFAT is the right call with the conditions that are changing in the area and it being located on North Montgomery Street along a major north-south corridor. I think that is the right zoning classification for this parcel. Ideal.
Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll now hear any public comments on the matter. At this time, is there anyone wishing to come forward and be recognized for a maximum of 3 minutes? Any public comments? Any public comments? City attorney's asked to be recognized.
Can someone speak to the issue of public need?
I believe that should be the applicant. Sure.
So, on behalf of the Harleston Company, the public need, as population continues to grow and the attractiveness of our downtown continues to grow, and the current rezoning along that corridor, we feel like that the need does exist for not only more retail space, which will exist as part of this project, but also additional space for potential renters. So that we feel like there was a public need.
Are there any further public comments? Any further public comments? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion on the matter. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of RZ 1702, a request to rezone one lot located at 114 North Montgomery from C2 to T5 with property number 117M-00-157.00 as presented with the conditions as recommended by P. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a public hearing in consideration of VA 1701. Mr. Sanders.
This is a request for variance from wall sign square footage requirements and a banner size and duration requirements for Academy Sports on Hollywood Boulevard. The subject property is located at 160 Hollywood Boulevard off of Highway 12, currently under construction. The applicant has 3 variance requests. The first request is seeking a dimensional variance from the aggregate square footage for a wall sign. The applicant is requesting that they be allowed to increase their square footage from 150 square feet to 250 square feet. The second request is a dimensional variance from the 24 square feet maximum square footage for a banner. The applicant is requesting that they be allowed to increase their banner square feet for 3 banners, 2 at 60 square feet and 1 at 80 square feet. The third request is a variance from the 15-day maximum display period for banners for 2 separate banners. The now hiring banner, their request is 82 days, and the opening date banner, their request is 20 days. 43 properties owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing notice was published in the Starkville Daily News on December 29, 2016, and a placard was posted on the property concurrent with publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received 1 phone call inquiring about the request. On January 25, 2017, the Board of Adjustments and Appeals voted to recommend approval of the variance request VA 1701 with the condition that Academy Sports not be allowed to receive a banner permit for a period of 12 months.
Questions or comments by the members of the board? Any questions or comments by the members of the board? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move into the public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comments from the public may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll move into discussion by the board. Discussion.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of VA 1701, request for variance from wall sign square footage requirements and banner size and duration requirements for Academy Sports on Hollywood Boulevard as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a public hearing and consideration of VA 1702. Mr. Sanders?
VA 1702, the request for variance from street width and standard curb design for proposed new subdivision entrance for Phase 11A of Greenbrier subdivision on Greenbrier Street. The proposed entrance is located plus or minus 200 feet east of the center of Greenbrier Street and North Primrose Lane intersection. This entrance is located within the right-of-way of Greenbrier Street. There were two parts to this request. The applicant is requesting the minimum lane reduction to 10 feet plus a 2-foot curb and gutter. And the applicant is also requesting the use of a ribbon curb in place of the standard curb allowed by subdivision regulations. And where they're wanting to use a ribbon curb is around the center island of the sun, and then the lane width is from this dimension. And here's just some renderings of what the proposed entrance would look like. 16 property owners of record within 300 feet of the proposed sign location were notified directly by mail of this request. A public hearing was noticed in Starkville Daily News on January 16, 2017, and a sign was posted on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning officer received one phone call against this request. On January 25th, 2017, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals voted to recommend approval of the variance request VA 1702.
Questions or comments by the members of the board? Any questions or comments? Questions or comments by the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll now hear public comments. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you will be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move into board discussion on the matter. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of VA 1702, a request for variance from street width and standard curb design for a proposed new subdivision entrance for Phase 11A of Greenbrier subdivision on Greenbrier Street as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, other than to say I think this will be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is public hearing and consideration of VA 1703. Mr. Sanders?
VA 1703, this is a request for variance from the front setback requirements for the proposed Marigny subdivision on Yellow Jacket Road. The subject property is located on the south side of the intersection of Yellow Jacket Drive and Vine Street. The applicant is requesting relief for the front back requirements for 5 proposed lots that will border 2 public roads. You can see them highlighted. The area for the request is in green. This is Yellow Jacket. This is the new proposed road yet to be named. The front of the homes will face Yellow Jacket Drive, this direction, but will be rear loaded with parking facing a future drive. The applicant would like to have a 20-foot deep driveway and a 5-foot landscape buffer between the driveway and the house. And part of his request is, the reason for that dimension is so that the cars don't overhang the future sidewalk in the area. The request to accommodate the deeded dimension for the structure, and the applicant is asking the variance for front setback of 25 feet to proposed setback of 20 feet. 48 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of this request. A public hearing was noticed in the Starkville Daily News on January 10, 2017, and a place card was posted on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning officer received no phone calls against this request. On January 25th, 2017, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals voted to recommend approval of the variance request VA 1702.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or
May I be
comments?
recognized?
You may.
Is a sidewalk going to be required on the back side as well, along
Correct.
that street?
It's required on public and private, so,
On
yes.
both sides then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll hear any public comments. Is there anyone now wishing to speak? Anyone now wishing to speak? Anyone now wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll enter discussion on the matter.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of VA 1703, a request for variance from the front setback requirements for the proposed Marini subdivision. What is it? Marini, for the proposed Marini subdivision on Yellow Jacket Road as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter before you, we're now moving into mayor's business, is discussion and consideration of PP 1619. Mr. Sanders?
PP 1619 is a request of Saunders Ramsey on behalf of Light Bearers Ministry for preliminary plat approval of two-lot subdivision of a plus or minus 7.73 acre parcel in the east side of North Montgomery and the south side of Presley Drive in a C1 R5 RE zone with the parcel number 0117E-00-01800. Just a point of reference, the properties were just rezoned, so they're now RE and R5.
Discussion.
Move approval with the recommended condition.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of PP 16-19 for preliminary plat approval for a two-lot subdivision of a plus or minus 7.73 acre parcel on the east side of North Montgomery and the south side of Presley Drive in an R5 zone with the parent parcel number. It is all R5 now, right? Should it be C1 R5 and rezone?
It would be RE and R5.
Okay, in a R5 and RE zone?
Correct.
With the parent parcel number 0117E-00-018.00 as presented with the condition as recommended. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is discussion and consideration of FP 1701. Discussion.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of FP 1701.
With the recommended conditions, Mayor. The recommended conditions by planning and zoning.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of FP 1701, a request for final plat approval for a two-lot subdivision of plus or minus 7.73 acre parcel on the east side of North Montgomery and the south side of Presley Place in an R5 RE zone with the parent parcel number 0117E-000-018.00 as presented with the condition as recommended by P&Z. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman Walker.
It looks like there may be some discrepancy between the final plat and the preliminary plat in terms of the requested conditions on the packet. It looks like we only have 3 conditions listed, is what we saw there, so that may be something we just want to make sure that we're accurate, which one is correct.
Were those recommended by P&Z?
Yes, these are the proper ones.
All right, the motion says as recommended by P&Z, so everyone be advised, those are the conditions that are a part of the ordinance.
And while
Or, excuse me, a part of the
While we're talking about that, there may be a legitimate reason for this, but why are we approving both a preliminary plat and a final plat of the same project on the same night? I would think that the purpose of the preliminary plat is to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row and everything's working through before we have the final plat. If we're going to, and this may be, we hear all the time about how we're, making our process more difficult than it needs to be, and is this an area where we have that? Do we need a true preliminary plat to be turned in, or can that all be one function where you're coming to the board one time to do that? I don't know, because we typically don't do final plat and preliminary plat simultaneously. I know we have, but we don't routinely do that, and so what's just the brief explanation of why we're doing that?
I'm going to recognize the applicant on that one. Well,
If there is no need for a new road or any utility infrastructure at, between preliminary and final plat, then they have gone at the same time before. If
So it
utilities
has
and
to do
roads
with,
are already in
it has to
place.
do with, is there new infrastructure being put into
Correct. If
the-
there's a need for infrastructure plan review and actual construction to take place before final plat, which in this case, there is no need. It's just a split of the lots.
So is that something from an applicant standpoint? Do we know that does every applicant know that information up front and can
Generally,
work their
it's told to them.
project through and save them time to be able to do that?
During DRC, it generally comes up.
I'll say on this one, it is a little bit different. That is communicated to the applicant, and it is kind of known that that's the case. However, this was a little bit different. We actually went through the preliminary plat process, went to P&Z, got comments, came back. The reason why the two rezoning, the preliminary plat and the final plat are all here at once tonight is I can't speak for the alderman, but I think the intention was not to approve this thing in chunks, to make sure that the residents got to hear it all the way through, and then tonight we were gonna handle it all at once. So this one is a little bit different. The board didn't see the preliminary plat.
The preliminary plat was tabled on
Yeah,
December
it was-
20th, 2016, until the items could be heard for reason.
Well, what I would say, this may be, while this may be an untypical way we look at it, this may be an opportunity that's worth for city staff to take a look at. Is there a way to improve our process moving forward to be able to accommodate all users in a more streamlined fashion?
And just for the record, that option is usually made clear, and it does absolutely help the process. So
thank you.
Any further discussion? You may.
Mr. Ramsey, are these the requested conditions that you understood to be in place?
Yes, these were clearly communicated to us prior to any type of action. I believe most of them have already been, the ones that are required, obviously, for approval are already in place. And then the stormwater one is something that makes complete sense from a development standpoint, so the applicant was aware of that, so yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none,
I just want to make clear that my motion includes all these 5 and not the 3 that were listed in our packet.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Without objection, I'm going to move us into a brief recess. Seeing no objection, we'll move into a brief recess. The meeting will now come back to order. The next matter you have before you is a report on the status of the Innspark retail survey. We now have all of the results in. It is a very large data set, much too large to get into any great detail at this meeting. The highlights that we discussed at our press conference last week are that overall there's $608 million of spending that is accounted for in the area. One of the major reasons we did this study was because we are a unique market, being a college town and a tourism hub. That means we have a lot of people moving in and out of our market, and it is noteworthy that of the $608 million, that study shows that over half of that is being spent by those people that are moving in and out of our market. Specifically, MSU students, MSU alumni and season ticket holders, and general area visitors to Starkville. Now, the data goes much, much deeper as to how each of those groups, along with permanent residents of the city, are spending money in the community as well as in other communities. And it should be very helpful for both our retail recruiter and our community development staff as they are fielding requests and trying to gain traction, bringing retailers to the community. It supplements traditional census data, which is mainly the type of data that those retail site selectors are working with. So I think this should be a powerful tool for us to make the case as to why we're a good retail market in the future. Questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, the next matter on the agenda is a consideration of a fixed base operator proposals from AMS. Alderman Maynard, would you like to introduce this matter?
Yes, Mayor, we put out a RFP for a fixed base operator, and as people were applying, or this individual group, AMS, applying for this, I met with them as budget chair because the city clerk had some questions about costs that they were looking at. As we had the discussion and got into the discussion, it quickly became apparent to me that they needed to present to the entire board. So at that point, I just asked them to come tonight to present their findings and proposal to the board. So with that, I'll turn it over to you gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Corey Gillard, owner and president of Airline Maintenance Service. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board for having us here tonight to present you this proposal. It's about 15 minutes. The first 10 of that is a corporate video that we would like you to watch. It really gives you a good understanding of what our company is, our core competencies, and why we're here before you today. So we'd like to start off with that, and then we have a short few slides to go through, and it won't take up any more of your time than we need to. We should start here. I grew up always loving aircraft and airplanes, and I've built all airplanes. So working on stuff along in aviation, I've had for a long time. AMS was started in the spring of 2010. Myself and 300 employees as technicians, covering 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, on-call line maintenance for Nashville.
They started with four people. I think I was the fifth. So I've seen it grow from that to close to 50 today. Corey's morals and ethics align perfectly with mine, and I really want to be a part of AMS. We've grown our locations from one service location in Nashville to multiple locations in multiple states. We recently purchased a marina in Mississippi. There are a lot of similarities between the marina and some of the aviation businesses. For instance, the FBO fuels aircraft, the hangars aircraft, the services aircraft. The marina fuels boats, has slips for boats, and services boats. Most importantly, we bring the same philosophy with our employees to the marina and to all of our aviation businesses.
My job is twofold, one to our customers, one to our employees. Our customers have got to be good first. Whether that's someone in a pontoon boat needing fuel, someone in a Gulfstream who needs to be put away for the night to get out of a thunderstorm, or an air carrier with a 757 that needs a tire change. We have to put that customer first, and we have to do it in such a way that our employees know that they're valued and that their work means something to not only the customer but to this company.
There is an attitude that is infused from management all the way down that is customer-centered. We strive to provide the level of service that our competitors don't provide. And we take ownership in each job and each responsibility that we have. We've been able to create a company that has grown, that continues to grow, that is profitable. We're excited for what the future brings, and we're ready for that.
AMS currently consists of three major business components, the first of which is our line maintenance operation in Nashville, consisting of on-call and scheduled line maintenance for the air carriers.
We work on about 20 different airlines, so at any given time you can get called out to any different type of aircraft. There's a lot more that goes on beyond just aircraft maintenance. We manage over $1 million worth of inventory for several different airlines. We handle records for some airlines. we manage aircraft that are parked in reservation.
Because we started as an on-call company, the way that you can grow in this industry is to be the most efficient and be the standard. And that's where we've got our large contracts from, the very fact that we are the best at what we do. The guys we choose for these jobs have to be able to communicate fairly well and maintain composure under stress constantly, because it's very stressful. And you have a lot of lives at stake when you repair an airplane that's flying in the air. They can't pull over on the side of the road, you know, when something goes wrong. So it has to be done correctly the first time.
When we look for an employee, we look for attitude. We can teach skills, we can't teach attitude. So we want an employee who is infected with aviation. We want somebody who lives and breathes aviation. I think the result of finding that right employee is that the customer gets somebody who really cares. They're not just going through the motions and punching a time clock. They really care about the quality of their job, and they're willing to stay and see a job through all the way to the end, even if it means significant overtime or having to change their personal plans. For our airline employees, between the time we hire them and the first time that they walk out onto the ramp to turn a wrench, could be weeks and in some cases months. They go to airline-specific schooling. They may go to aircraft-specific training. And then, of course, we have our own internal training program. So we invest quite a bit in an employee before they ever turn a wrench on an airplane.
A lot of our employees have GenFam courses on several different aircraft, 4 or 5 different aircraft. There's nowhere else that you're going to go to work that is going to have you qualified on as many aircraft as we have. Our employees have an understanding that every single airline is different. That no 2 airlines operate the same way. So our employees are used to having to do things a certain way for each airline. Every airline has their own way of doing their paperwork, their processes, their inspections, and that's something that our employees are highly trained on.
It is up to the technicians, it is up to the line service personnel to carry out this commitment to the customer. They are the ones who interact with the customer. So it is vitally important that that person represents AMS to the level to which we all want it to be represented, to which it has to be represented. You have to truly care about the customer. You have to truly want to provide them that level of service. Turning wrenches is no less of a commitment to ensure that you provide the customer what they expect. You know, they expect a safe aircraft performed on time. That's a very real commitment. It's a very difficult task as a technician to ensure that you do that.
Most of the management of AMS are aviation enthusiasts. I'm a pilot. Our president is a pilot. Many of our employees are pilots. So we've spent quite a bit of time in various FBOs all around the country. We know what services pilots want. We try to provide those services.
And so that's what we do for our base customers. Is we're there. You know, they call us at whatever time. We're gonna, you know, pick up the phone. We're gonna take care of the problem that they have.
It becomes a family. I mean, it's just, even with the customers that come in, we become a family. We see each other all the time. Communication is the key. That way we know their likes, we know their dislikes, we know what they want, we know what they need.
One thing that differentiates AMS-run FBOs from a typical city-run FBO is there's also an emphasis on the bottom line. We know that to survive, we have to make a profit, but to make a profit, we have to satisfy our customers. So there's a constant balance between the two. I think we're very good at providing the level of services that pilots need and expect, the level of professionalism that's required in our business, the level of discretion that's required from an FBO.
It's a dedication to a commitment that you've made and an understanding that not following through, failing to meet expectations is more than just loss of a relationship. It's a loss of a reputation. We do want to continue to grow. We want to bring this level of service to other customers in other areas.
This is the largest lake in the state of Mississippi. It's not crowded, you don't have big boat traffic going through. So you get a beautiful lake all to yourself pretty much. There are so many people around, even in this area, that know the lake is here, but they have no idea that the marina is here. There are no other marinas anywhere within about a 2-hour drive of this marina. We are the only one. Unfortunately, after a storm that took out some of the docks, the marina started going down, and it was maintained, but not in the fashion that it deserved to be. When Corey and AMS came in, things started immediately. The day that he got here, we started making changes. If you talk to any of our tenants, they're thrilled with the changes that have been made. We've got, of course, a great recreation area out here. We have slips, both uncovered and covered slips, rental boats, which were not available in the past. We do have fuel here. We have a restaurant on premises, staff that we have here, the ownership. You know, everything is geared toward making the customer experience here a very pleasant one, and you know, what they would expect to have. Right now, it's just an absolutely different place than the Sardis Marina of old.
The business has to take on the ethics and values and the persona of those who are in it, those who lead it, those who work within it.
I believe that our focus on customer service has led us to obtain the contracts and grow the company at the rate that we have.
What can AMS provide to that customer? What can we do for you? How can we solve a problem? How can we meet a need?
So I want to thank you for watching that. I know you're pressed for time, but I think it's important to understand the other aspects of our business and understand that while we're here to talk to you about FBO operations, our core competency is service. We do service for airlines, we do service for the marina. It's servicing the customer. That's what we're very good at. So translating that into why we're here in front of you today is for FBO and airport management discussions. Just a little background on our current FBOs that we have under management are Tupelo Regional. We currently have managed that facility since 2012, and we are currently doing over 800,000 gallons a year and managing over 75,000 square feet of hangar space. We hold the military fueling contract, which is a very stringent process to obtain and to hold that contract. We are also held to Part 139 standards, which means that the Tupelo Airport is a Part 139 airport. Starkville is not. But the key here is that we are held to a much higher standard at Tupelo. We would bring that same level of service to Starkville. And then of note is the proximity to Oxford. We currently do a tremendous amount of Ole Miss charter flights, and we would seek to reestablish the relationship and ensure that that Starkville is appropriately working with MSU here in Starkville. In Greenville, Mississippi, we have Mid-Delta Aviation. Not an unsimilar situation to, I believe, what you guys maybe find yourself in is we've only been doing that for about a year. We were given very short notice. We came in and solved a lot of issues that they had with their airport. and that has been a little over a year in progress here. We significantly increased their gallons. We brought on their air carrier, Boutique Airlines, and Greenville is also a 139 airport with military fueling, and we do charters there for Delta State. So I think a lot of similarities between the current FBOs that we manage and here in Starkville, what we could do for you. I'd like to introduce Eric Larson, our Director of Business Development. And Eric does also have experience on an airport board. He's currently serving on the board of Shelbyville, Tennessee, small local airport. So I'd like to introduce Eric, and he's going to walk you through a few other slides here.
Thank you. Greetings. As we began to do research for this proposal to Starkville, we did a site visit, and we met several times with Lisa Harden and Nav Ashford with the city. So we put together some information, and I tried to draw some parallels, some similarities between what we're doing currently and what the operation at Starkville Airport would be. First and most obvious would be fuel sales. We handle all the fuel sales at Greenville, Mississippi, and Tupelo, Mississippi, and we've proven over years that we can provide safe and reliable service. Of note, I think, is that we've been able to increase margin on fuel sales in both those locations without greatly jeopardizing our base tenant relations, and I think that's very important to emphasize. The base tenants in an airport are your lifeblood of the airport, and you always face this task of balancing profitability versus customer service and keeping your customers happy, and I think we've been able to do a good job in both locations. Also, athletic charter operations. At Ole Miss, they find themselves near a runway that isn't capable of handling their larger charter traffic, and before we came aboard, they were sending most of their charters to Memphis. Provided some difficulty for them, and that Memphis is a much larger airport. They didn't really have dedicated space set aside for them. They were dealing with vendors that perhaps weren't as attentive to them as possible. And so we have developed that relationship with them over the years, that they will bring their football charters and they will suggest to their opposing teams that they use the Tupelo Airport for their football charters in to play Ole Miss. And we have a very good relationship with them. That has grown to include much of the charter traffic that they handle. They'll still bring in the smaller aircraft that they can handle at their own runway, but we do almost all of their regional traffic now. And third, hangar rentals. You have a challenging setup at your airport in terms of your community hangars. And we faced that same issue in Greenville, and so I saw a lot of parallels between your hangar setups in the Starkville Airport and what we're facing in Greenville. Quality control is another area that we have great expertise in. Our line staff is highly trained. We have numerous people who are quality control supervisor, and that is an actual I don't know if you want to call it licensed, but certificated position that needs to go to biannual training. And so we have numerous people that are trained for that, and I think that is important. Both of the airports that we operate now are Part 139 airports, meaning they have air carrier service, so TSA is involved. There are more stringent airport audits performed by the FAA than would be in a non-towered airport. So we're used to a highly regulated environment, and we can bring those same stringent standards from these two airports to here. As well as the military. The military audits us on an annual basis as well, so fuel quality control is very important to the military, and I see that as something that is important to the Starkville Airport. Airport management, as Corey mentioned, I am a board member for our municipal airport in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
probably about the same size airport in terms of its annual operations as the Starkville Airport. They don't have a college in town, but they have probably a more robust general aviation traffic that drives those numbers up. So I'm accustomed to working with engineers and the FAA and the grant process. We've recently done some airfield lighting and taxiway overlay projects, and most recently we've completely rewritten all of the tenant leases and rewrote our minimum standards. So I'm used to that. All of our managers are used to presenting budgets and financials on a monthly basis. Both of our locations are audited annually by the city auditors. In fact, at Tupelo, we're audited twice, once by the airport's auditors and again by the city auditors. So we're very used to that. I believe after doing these site reviews and making a comparison between our current operations that I think that there are some needs that we have determined exist at Starkville, and foremost among them, and I can't stress this enough, is safety. I have some concerns about the current state of fuel quality control. As part of the research that I did, I was able to obtain the most recent Eastern Aviation Fuels audit that they did for fuel quality control. And I was reading through that, and there were a number of discrepancies that I think are important to note. Things like fuel filters that are out of date. Most important, they found that the avgas fuel was more than 6 months out of date, and that would put it out of ATSM certification. So what that means to the airport is that the insurance that is provided by your fuel vendors, which is Eastern Aviation through Rackley Fuels, is null and void. So the airport is at that moment in time running naked on liability coverage on the insurance. So I think what we find here is you just simply don't know what you don't know there. I didn't find that there was a lot of knowledge from the people that we interviewed there. They just simply weren't trained. There was no training program in place that the likes of which we have at both Tupelo and Greenville, in that we have a combination of on-the-job training and a dedicated online training program that each line person goes through, and each supervisor is sent to quality control supervisor training off-site by the fuel vendors every other year. I didn't see evidence of that here. Maybe there is, but the employees that we spoke with weren't aware of any of those things. A professional image was lacking, and I took particular note of the item that came before us on the agenda where you did the public retail survey. And I think it's very important, and it ties in real well with the professional image that we try to create at each of our locations, from our marina to our maintenance operations to each of the FBOs that we operate at. Your airport is the very first look that many retail executives will have of your community when they fly in. That line person marshaling that aircraft in, that FBO manager, that look of the FBO when they step off the airplane, that is their first impression of your community when they're coming here to consider putting in a retail establishment or look at locating at your new business park that I understand is coming up. So that was one of the things that we saw right away, is that there really wasn't a professional image, a structured, well thought out image. And then I think that it's clear that there's really not a pathway to profitability. I find a discernible marketing plan. As a board member in Shelbyville, I know that the FAA has mandated that airports try to become self-sufficient. That is a tall task for many small airports like Starkville and like Shelbyville, where I sit on the board. But it is important that you put a plan in place and set a goal to become self-sufficient. There are a number of things that I saw on our site visit here, some revenue enhancement ideas that we could take advantage of in Starkville. So having said all of that, why should you choose AMS to come in and manage your FBO and indeed your entire airport?
Before you answer that, can you talk a little bit briefly about the RFP we had to just manage the FBO and the difference in that and managing the entire facility?
Sure.
I want to make sure
I appreciate
that's
that.
clear.
There's a good tie-in between the two. As we started to look at, and this is apparent at many smaller airports, the FBO is so integrated into your entire operations that it's difficult to separate the two, airport management from FBO management. At a larger airport like Tupelo Regional, where there's air carrier service, there's a clear distinction between an airport terminal and a general aviation terminal. It's easier to pull out that FBO and separate the two duties. At a smaller airport, and we find this at the Shelbyville Airport and a little bit at the Greenville Airport as well, many of these things are intertwined amongst each other. So, for instance, grounds maintenance may be a function of airport management, but in many locations may be better served by personnel at the FBO who aren't serving an aircraft at the time. There may be a lot of downtime there that you can utilize personnel from the FBO. So a lot of cross-training, and then vice versa as well.
There's efficiencies of labor that when we took a look at this airport, there's efficiencies of labor that it becomes even more expensive to look at separating those departments. Certainly that's your choice, it's your airport. But our proposal was combining the two to try and maximize the efficiency of labor.
Does that make sense? Okay. And that ties in well. Why choose us? I think the biggest concern that we had and the immediate need was emergency attention to quality control issues. Record keeping is a big thing. I was unable to find the record keeping that we're used to seeing in terms of quality control. I was unable to identify some of the equipment that would be required to make sure that that the fuel is clean and bright, basically, and stays that way. I'm sure that equipment must exist somewhere, but the employees that we surveyed weren't aware of it and didn't know how to use it if they did know it. So I think that's the very first service that we can perform. An emergency service gets you up to speed immediately. It is not only a concern in terms of a liability to the airport and to the community, but if something should happen as a result of fuel quality issues, there's a human tragedy there as well, and we don't want to see that anywhere. I think that there are other things that we can do immediately. We have a presence at most of the major aviation conferences. In fact, I changed my plans this week so that I could be here. One of the largest conferences for aviation exists right now in Dallas, Texas, and I'll be driving to Dallas tomorrow from here. That's the National Business Aviation Association Schedulers and Dispatchers Convention. There are many, many airplanes that are flying over your head all day long. They have to stop for fuel somewhere. Why not Starkville? Because they don't know Starkville exists. There is no presence at these conventions. We have a booth for each of our facilities at these conventions. We talk to those schedulers, those dispatchers, those people that are making those fueling decisions for the different companies that are flying over your head all day. Why not stop here instead of your competitor next door at GTR? Why not stop here instead of 150 miles away? I think that having a presence at these industry events is very important, and we can bring that to the table as well. What we are going to propose is that we handle 3 items for you. Basically, total airport management, quality control, and FBO management. And as Mr. Maynard pointed out and asked me to point out, I believe that they're all 3 tied together at a small airport like Starkville. the fueling, the marshaling, the training and record keeping, the quality control stuff, the groundskeeping, your liaisons with the FAA, holding ourselves out to a higher standard with the FAA, with MDOT. I think these things are important, and we are proposing today that we handle your total airport management.
So the big question is, what is it going to cost? And I think before we move on to that, I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding cost. And that is, and I don't mean to be dramatic, but based on our assessments, here's what I see. What is the cost of a pint of water moving through filters that haven't been changed in 2 years and going into an aircraft? It's a big cost. What is the cost of a lack of management or a lack of staff at key times, and someone flies into your community, no one's there? What does that cost? What is the cost of a chaotic ramp when no one's managing that ramp, and a moment of indecision or a moment of unawareness causes someone to walk into a propeller on game day? What does that cost? I can tell you it's millions. And not only that, there is a human cost. So those are things that, whether you choose to use us or not, need to be considered. So our cost is $100,000 management fee to be paid monthly. For that, you get all of our experience. You get our management ability to bring this airport to a very high level, one that we can all be proud of, one that, on game day, that, we can work with the university to really showcase the airport and make sure that the community is utilizing the airport to the highest and best possibility. You guys did a lot of zoning stuff today. Is that airport being used to its highest and best purpose? I think that's something you need to ask yourself. In addition to that, and this is the way we work all of our contracts, we would want to work in a 40% net profit. I don't believe that that's something that's going to happen in our proposed initial period, but I want you to know that that is the goal. That is the goal. We want to drive you to break even or profitability. Go ahead. That being said, this proposal is something that's going to have to make sense for both of us. Frankly, we're walking into a situation that needs, it's going to need a lot of effort to bring it to where it needs to be. So we propose a 1-year initial contract period. This is a period that you get to test us out, we get to test you out. Very small obligation. If at the end of that 4 years, mutually, we agree to move forward, then we move forward with a 4-year extension. This worked really well in Greenville. In fact, it worked so well that, because of the same situation, we were given a very short time frame to come in there and try and make it work. That actually, as of October of last year, before our 1 year was up, they went ahead and extended us for the full 4 years. So I think it works well, this style of proposal. Neither one of us are making a huge commitment. And if at the end of a year you say, look, it's just not working out, then I believe you're in a much better position than you are today.
I'm not asking you to take our word for it. I've gone through and personally contacted each one of the individuals on this list here, and they welcome your phone calls. They welcome your questions. Of particular note are several airport managers, several executives at our bank, if you have questions about our financial stabilities. The Eastern Aviation Fuels rep, we're very familiar with Eastern Aviation, as we are with AvFuel as well. And in addition to that, reach out and speak with Ms. Hartman, the travel coordinator at Ole Miss. These people are people that we've worked with and created a relationship with over a period of years and have proven our success. And that concludes our presentation. I have a copy of all of these slides for you in a handout that I'll give you, and we welcome your questions at this time.
Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Walker.
Just want to say, first of all, thank you all for submitting to this request for proposals and for presenting a very professional, organized presentation this afternoon, this evening for us to consider. I don't think there's any question that the services that you and your company provide would serve our community well. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Under the contract that you proposed, does the city retain any employees? And what I'm specifically getting at is there any financial obligation? I understand you might maintain some of the people that are employed in the airport under your contract.
Right.
Do we have any employees that are not under your umbrella, under such a contract?
That would be entirely up to you.
Would we need it?
Under our proposal, I don't believe so, although I think that's something that would need to be discussed, exactly what the chain of command, what the organizational flow chart would look like. I think it could work many different ways. I don't think it necessarily has to have anyone underneath your control. I think we could report directly to the airport board, directly to this council, however you wish to see that happen.
Are you open to considering retaining some of our employees under your contract?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've done this in all the situations. We will develop the employment structure. We'll develop those positions. We'll outline the requirements of those positions, and then any current employee who wishes to apply for that position, absolutely, they'll be given due consideration.
So as part of your review, and you may have already done this, would you be willing to review everything that we have on our payroll right now, make a determination what, if any, of those positions first would go under your umbrella, so that we could identify what, if anything, might be remaining,
right.
Make a budgetary analysis?
Absolutely, and I think it's important to the purpose behind this visit and this presentation, for at least my goal coming through tonight, would be for you as the board to determine, is this the path we want to take? Is that number something we can accept? If so, then you need only let us know, and we will develop that agreement and start drafting those negotiations. If not, then I think we're happy to help however we can, but if that's not the direction you want to go.
As an example, in Greenville, the operator just simply up and left with barely 2 weeks' notice. I think it was 10 days' notice. So it was important that somebody get in there immediately. So we did that. We just took on all of those employees immediately because of the emergency nature of everything. And then we worked with the airport manager there and the city's airport committee. They didn't have an advisory board. They have a committee of their council in developing a budget process. We offloaded all of those employees onto AMS, and it's a straight flow through. So the P&L is funded by the city as a straight flow through, but all of the employees are AMS employees. So there's no concern about an excessive employee load for full-time employees. That in the private sector, the load factor is quite a bit lower. And we also have full benefits packages and all of that. So the employees were actually ended up being paid more and still retain their benefits. In fact, some of them went from part-time to full-time.
The idea is to make it as simple on you as the city as possible. There's one direct point of communication. There's one direct entity responsible for the airport. The idea is to make it simple for you. As part of this, should you decide to move forward, more than happy to put together an expense budget, for you to approve prior to signing anything. So that's something that would definitely be involved.
Mr. Mayor, one important note in regards to personnel, because we have these other locations in fairly proximate to this location, employee swapping, efficiency of employees is something that this airport can benefit from. We already have, just an hour and 15 minutes away, highly trained employees and more than one that has had the supervisor rating. So we have the potential to be able to move employees at a short notice to come down here and cover events, or to move employees that need training to Tupelo for training in a high volume environment that they couldn't get in months down here. Aircraft fleet types, operation types, all of these different operations would take months to train somebody up in practical knowledge down here with the volume that you have. It can be done in a week up in Tupelo because of the volume. We're probably looking at 10 times the volume up there.
Any further Alderman Carver?
Might have already been answered, but from a management, groundskeeping, lawn maintenance and all that would be an employee of AMS that would be out there actually doing all the bush hogging and the cutting.
That's correct.
That's what we're proposing. I mean, we're out of the box thinkers. So if the board has ideas that might be different, that still fit the flavor of what we're trying to do, we're absolutely open to looking at that. But in our site visit and developing this proposal, we thought you could benefit from total airport management as opposed to just simply trying to unwind what might be FBO operations.
I don't know if it's typical format, but I think it's imperative that we engage the board president and the airport manager. Do y'all have any recommendations or anything that you just see that's a red flag in this presentation that we need to discuss now?
Trey, you want to come up?
With very little data and the limited amount of time I've looked at this, I'm not sure that I have any specific issues. Clearly, we have relationships with Golden Triangle, and this city funds operations for Golden Triangle Airport and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of activities that we need to look at from a broad perspective to make sure that the operation of the Starkville Airport is for the benefit of the city and the benefit of the community in the right area, not necessarily competing with other airports that we're funding.
Thank you.
Mayor, let me recognize.
You may.
You want to go in a little bit about, as the new president of the airport board, your vision for the airport?
Sure. So we have over the last number of months been collecting data on the viability of running the FBO ourselves to determine if that's a recommendation that we'd like to make to this board. I'm hopeful that we will have a recommendation from the airport board at an upcoming meeting on that. We have been very successful as an airport over the recent years in securing grant funding to grow the airport. We have 57 aircraft based at Starkville Airport now, so it's a fairly significant number. We're seeing in excess of 26,000 operations a year at the airport, so it is a large amount of traffic and in and through the airport, and a large amount of aircraft that are based at the airport. All of our hangars are completely full. We can't build hangars quickly enough to meet the demand for that, so we are clearly growing as an airport.
I'd like to add that wherever we've gone, we've worked closely with the advisory boards, or in Tupelo's case, the actual airport authority. They're an authority board. And if selected to work at your airport, we would do the same thing. We have very good relationships with the boards and would look forward to that same.
Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of approval of change order number 3 to the police renovation contract in the amount of Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Consideration and approval. Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of placing an insert provided by the Octavia County Humane Society, a nonprofit organization, in the Starkville Utilities February or March utility bills. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is the discussion of change order number 3 to the police renovation contract in the amount of $150,664. Mr. Schaefer, would you like to introduce this matter?
Thank you, Carver.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just make a brief presentation. The financial context of this project is on the handout that we gave you in the top 3 numbers. You have a contract at $4.478 million for the project. That allowed a contingency sum of $291,309, and there's a sum in the budget for furniture, fixtures, and equipment at $150,000. To date, you have approved change order number 1 and 2, so those numbers on the right side then, I'm balancing down the contingency sum. So you currently, as of this moment, have $269,902 in your contingency fund, and you still have the $150,000 in your FF&E. The 12 items that are in your packets representing change order number 3 represent a combination of user-requested items and unforeseen items. They total $150,664. So if you accept that change order, you will then have a balance of $119,237 in your contingency, and you'll still have the $155,000 that will be unspent on furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Can we go through each line and discuss what each one?
We can if you'd like to.
I would like that.
Okay, the items that are in blue are owner requested, things that basically the chief has looked at and asked. These were items that we took out in the value engineering between the first bid and the second, and now with the contingency fund, he's looking to bring some of these items back in. They would be under, for the most part, under the notion of a qualitative item or under the notion of something that will either serve us longer in terms of the quality of the material. So the first case is...
I'm sorry, I just want to make some clear. So if I'm looking at the cost column, is so that first one for the revised entry two-tone, the 9782, that's the revised cost for that one line item?
That's correct.
And what I'm looking at to the right is where you're adding up or subtracting that from the contingency balance?
Right, and the contract's going up by that number, and the
amount.
contingency's
Gotcha.
going down.
I just want to make sure I was reading it correctly.
That's
Sorry.
correct. And so the first one are the pavers. Chief, do you want to talk about that, or you want me to?
This is simply the front part where the flagpole is of the police department. We want to take great pride in that, as I've expressed several times. You can use those pavers for down officers. We engrave their names out there. You know, we're going to use that for a really, if you would, sacred area. We get out every morning and present the flag, and if we have any kind of events, that's where we do this at.
Okay. The next item are structural changes to the east and west wing. The city did provide us with some of the original drawings of the building, which was very helpful. Unfortunately, you did not have the sheet of the first floor. The first floor is where the structural problems, the structural conditions would have been explained, so we didn't know. And then the building had been renovated from the time of the original construction, when the police came in and when the offices for City Hall, forgotten what offices were on the east side there.
That was, yeah, down below you had clerk, my
Right.
office, and the
So,
city engineer.
but on the upper level. The problem is when those renovations were done, that you actually took out the load-bearing walls that were holding the roof up. Now, they were replaced with some other walls in some of the constructions to reconfigure that. But when and of course we had no way of knowing that was out, so when we came to take those walls out, we then had to replace the structural system that was taken out originally and rearrange it around our new design. So it required taking the roof structure down through the wall structures, and we had to, in fact, put new footings. There are about 80 feet of new concrete footings that had to go in underneath there. That side of the building only has 4 feet, so they all had to be hand dug. The concrete all had to be pumped in to correct that structural problem that was made during the previous renovation. So those two figures are the east and west structural corrections that needed to be made.
So the green, Gary, are going to be structural requirements?
The green, yes.
Required?
The green I'm calling unforeseen. The blue I'm calling owner requested. So the blue are the police and the green are the unforeseen. Okay. The next, Chief, let me talk. The walk-off mats, now when you come into the doors, we will have the mats in the floors that will hopefully help clean your feet off before the officers are bringing the dirt into the building. So we see that as a maintenance saving thing. Now you can argue there's no more or less square footage in the building, but the maintenance of the building should be less because of the walk-off mats. The same thing, when we had to reduce the cost, we put carpet in. The chief was adamant about not wanting carpet, but when we were able to bring it in on the money, he's requested to put the vinyl tile back in, and so that's replacing carpet with vinyl tile. The barn doors on the west side, this is not so much the chief's request, but on the other hand, I remind you, this is Archives and History, the permitting group for the building. They requested that we restore the exterior of the building to its original appearance. And these doors were originally there. Now, they're not there now, but to reconstruct these doors and to put those back on the west side. They were originally on the west and the east, but our recommendation, since you won't see the east side, they just be on the west side.
I guess looking through this in our packet, that was kind of the one that stuck out as being more of an extravagant. I understand the walk-off mats, and I understand the pavers for down officers, and the diagrams were sufficient in explaining that. But when you say this is an archive and history requirement, is that something?
No, I didn't say requirement. I said it's archives. I didn't mean to say requirement. It's an archives and history building, right, and the permitting is through them.
And we still have to go through a final permitting process from Archives and History, right?
But this would be their request to put the exterior back to its original appearance.
Are these doors just going to be open to the elements?
Yes.
Okay, I know that Spanish cedar is going to bake in that sun, in the western sun, and then refinishing. They're going to be stained.
Spanish cedar is the material of choice by Archives and History for exterior doors and windows.
But I'm asking about the maintenance on, are they gonna be stained and varnished?
Yes, and there will be maintenance to these.
Yes,
But when specifying the wood type, this is the wood type that they would specify. So that's why we chose that.
You think it's practical to go that route?
It's what we use in all of our historic buildings.
Okay. But practical for the police station and the maintenance is gonna be required ongoing through the heat and the elements. I'm just, it's the western sun. I know firsthand how experience.
I don't disagree. It is the standard for historic buildings. Okay. Probably the biggest debate we had in the entire project, automatic flush sensors or manual. We foolishly suggested that we put all automatic back into the entire building. The chief adamantly said no. And so the only automatic flushes will be in the two public toilets as you come in to that front door. All the rest are old school. Any questions on that? See the chief.
Turn the water on, wash your hands, you don't need to be a police officer.
And I said, yes, sir. Let's see, where are we? The booking duct, that's the ducts in the booking area. There was an existing beam that they had to get reworked around. Painting the wire, this is fairly simple. There's the wires that will be holding the lay-in ceiling, the stuff that's above your head, go up and just attach to the original wood decking. But our hallways, when you walk down, will be opened all the way up to that decking. So those few wires that you will see are silver, and we're asking them to paint those wires black so they would be seen less. Now, that's $1,200, I believe, but that's the explanation for that. The last three all have to do with the concrete slab, the existing concrete slab. If any of you have been in there, we had to cut the slab a lot to run the plumbing, to run the footings for under the booking room and stuff like that. The original drawings have that as a 5-inch concrete slab. During the renovation of that back area, apparently there was a 4-inch capping slab poured over top. So the contractor had to remove 9 inches of concrete and then had to replace 9 inches of concrete. And so that additional concrete is that first number. The second number is the pipe that actually brings the water in for the sprinkler system. The original drawings show how the footings are and what their depth is. When we dug down, they didn't build the footings the way they were, and they were considerably deeper. So the contractor had to dig down much further to get the pipe under the footings and bring them back up. That's the second number for that. The last one is there was a time when the city put a new roof on the building. The roof, the original roof, is 3 feet below the parapet. Your existing roof sits on top of the parapet. So in our contract, we had removed the existing roof, constructed out of wood, our assumption, and then replace it back to the original roof. When they tore the roof off, it turns out that in fact there were steel bar joists sitting on top of the parapet so that they could tilt the roof to the front and bring the water off rather than the back. On the steel bar joist, were welded metal plates, and on top of that was the roof. So no one knew that was in there. Well, the problem with taking the metal bar joists off is the electric lines got moved over to our side of the road. We couldn't put a crane up to lift the bar joists off. So everything had to be cut off with torches and hand taken off the sides on top of a wooden building. And so that's that last additional charge, unforeseen, that no one would have known that. I believe that's all of them.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
I move approval.
A motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the proposed change order number 3 to the police renovation contract in the amount of $150,664.01 as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? I've got Wynn, Carver, Walker. Alderman Wynn.
Just for public information, on October 4th, 2016, change order number 1 was $11,025. Change order number 2 came in October 18th, 2016 for an amount of $10,382,000. And change order number 3 tonight is a request for $150,664.01. If approved tonight, the total amount of change orders, being 3 of them, will be a sum of $172,071.01. I yield the floor here.
Alderman Carver.
I'm okay with unforeseens, I guess, because that's just things you gotta do in an architectural project. But what as far as chief, do you have any other major wish list that you see in this contingency fund that we're gonna be looking at? What's your next?
No, sir.
Nothing else
I
that you
don't.
see?
Of course, we'll know once we get into ordering the furniture and ordering the dispatch equipment, all the electronics and stuff like that, so.
Okay.
There will be some changes as we go forward, though, because you will spend the entire project budget on this project. It's designated for this purpose.
Yeah, sure.
But
I guess I was just gonna ask you if there's any one other thing, I understand the pavers, but if there's any other one thing that you just, it's a wish list, so.
Sally Port, that's quite a few things, but, I know the budget won't cover it, so I'm not gonna be ridiculous to ask for it. So that's nothing that I foresee that I would ask for with the money that we have.
Yeah.
Especially with the unforeseen, with the dispatch equipment and things like that.
I want to just say publicly, I know you're a little under the weather tonight and all that, and we talked earlier, but just thank you for all you're going through with this, and something you can look back on your legacy from years to come, saying that you walked the department through this process and having all the precincts spread out and all that. But just thank you for what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate the compliments, but
Yeah.
I never take credit for myself. It one for these guys that get out here and do it every day. We couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Thank you.
Alderman Walker.
I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Schaefer, so we're probably 65% complete with the project at this point, and we've gone through the structural components, so we don't anticipate really any more structural types of things. So big ticket items that we would be looking at, from your experience, is it probably going to be where we may be having to get into more of the contingency fund? Is it likely to be the wiring for internet, other hardware, or what can we anticipate moving forward? Just where we are in the project today.
Right now, the only other number, I spoke with the contractor yesterday, there's maybe one $6,000 change order that will be related to an allowance that's already in the contract for $20,000, and then we had to get the bids in for the controls. The low bid came in at $26,000. So to my knowledge, the only additional need at this point is $6,000, and that would come out of the $120,000 contingency. So I think we've really been trying to squirrel that money away for getting as much of the equipment and infrastructure and IT stuff that would be coming up. And that's kind of tied into that furniture number also. Some equipment could be furniture, or you could choose to bookkeep it over in the contingency sum. And so, but I believe the chief has everything that he's asked, and quantitatively, the building is in great shape. We're on time, on schedule, and it's really exciting in there to see it coming together.
Thank you.
Thank you for going through that line by line.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter before you is
So moved.
motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve the architect's contract for furnishings, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, design for SPD in between the city of Starkville, Mississippi, and Schaefer and Associates as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is, again, motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve a resolution of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, seeking appropriation from the Mississippi Legislature for renovation of Old City Hall for the Starkville Police Department as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It was actually Alderman Carver.
Oh, Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir. Will you be using Cornerstone for this, or?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a consideration of a warranty deed facilitating.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve a warranty deed facilitating dedication and acceptance of Fannydale Road as a public road in the city of Starkville, Mississippi, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Walker. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is a consideration of grading, and graveling Fannydale Road. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of grading and graveling Fannydale Road in a joint effort with Octavia County, consistent with the resolution passed by the Starkville Board of Alderman on September 6, 2016, and interlocal cooperative agreement between Starkville, Mississippi and Octavia County, Mississippi, relating to road maintenance and mosquito abatement dated October 3rd, 2016, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion?
Which line item is this coming from?
This will come from the street improvements line in your capital improvements budget. That's a $50,000 line that is for undesignated street improvements. The bulk of your street improvements funds, of course, are in your 7 discretionary accounts. You have a $50,000 general undesignated line for street items that come up like this one, and that's where it would come from.
So,
Alderman Little still has the floor.
I was just curious, because I know the first couple of years on the board, we worked capital improvements as a whole and picked, following a kind of a roadmap of need, and we bonded out some of those. And then, the last couple of years, we've divvied them out between ward-specific and discretionary funds, and all of a sudden now we're deviating again. And you'd said about a month ago that we didn't have any contingency funds, and what may come up between now and the next budget cycle, and here we are, we found some money. So,
Well, now, to be clear, this is not a contingency fund. Your contingency fund has, you started the year with $30,000 in it.
my question, I guess, was we used TIF money and then $145,000 from another line item. I wonder why we were doing road improvements, why this wasn't used.
Could you ask the question again? I don't think I understand.
Well, I believe if my memory's right, we pulled 100,000, it was 245 total divided by 7, 35 per ward. We pulled, I think, from a TIF line fund.
You pulled it for
$150,000.
You pulled $150,000 that you had reserved for future TIF payments, not an obligation you'll have this year. And you also pulled $100,000 from your ending fund balance.
I was just curious why this would not have been utilized at that point.
Well, ideally, you need to keep some money in a street fund for contingencies like this.
Well, my next question, we got a $13,000 bill in for survey and engineering, that doesn't count the attorney fees on top of this. Where's that money coming from?
Well, the attorney's fees will come from the attorney's fees line of the budget. They'll come in his regular billing process.
So that 13 will come off the 50?
It will come off of the 50, yeah. And I anticipate you'll have, if all 5 of these projects make this year, it will cost approximately $20,000 to do the work.
Do we know that?
But I would remind you that the engineering work was done pursuant to the order that you made as a board.
Correct.
When you pass this resolution, in your resolution, it says specifically, the city is authorized to seek any necessary surveys to provide legal descriptions of right-of-way for the roads. Any such surveys shall be acquired at standard prevailing market rates. When you pass that motion, I have an obligation to go and conduct the work.
Well, I have an obligation to ask the question. That was,
Sure.
We did that back in September of last year, if I recall.
You did.
And I'm just curious as to what, I think these are questions. If
Sure.
we're going to agree to 50% of what? Mr. City Engineer, do you know what we're agreeing to, 50%? Do you have a firm figure? If you would come forward, please. What are we agreeing to, 50% of what? Do you have a firm figure?
I prepared a cost estimate when these conversations initially started, Mayor, probably about a year ago or so. He asked me to put together a cost estimate of what it would take to essentially bring them up, not to a city street standard, but something passable from a drainage standpoint, as well as have enough adequate gravel surface for everyday traffic. And we estimated at that time about $40,000. Obviously, there's a lot of contingencies in that because, the roadways are all a little bit different as far as size and width and length. But I estimated about $40,000. That would be just for the material costs. That's gravel. In some cases, we need culverts and things like that. So, and some dirt and things like that.
That portion is not included in that figure, is that right? The culverts?
No, it would be all material. I'm including pipe and dirt and gravel into the material. Labor, the directive I was kind of given was labor would be done in-house. So it was not. Yeah, it was. I think it was part of it.
Is there some kind of overtime issue or anything?
Yeah, the way your interlocal establishes it is the county shall use all county labor equipment. The city shall contribute 50% of material costs and 50% of any overtime costs. So in the event that they incur overtime work after regular business hours, then we could be billed for those costs.
Well, I'm not going to belabor the issue. We've been splitting these up. I had a project, I didn't know if I was going to have the money for it or not. I think I'm going to have the money for it after the month ago meeting when we allocated discretionary funding. I think I can go forward with that. We knew this was coming forward in September. We knew we were about to do this. Why would not that money have been allocated from that war?
Yeah, and I guess to answer that question, I have no control over how you allocate your war discretionary funds. Now, of course, the board approves all of those, but generally you show deference to each other when you bring those matters before the board. But I will tell you, I feel a great deal of responsibility over this matter because this matter actually originated with me. Truthfully, this matter goes all the way back to the first month I was in office when I began fielding questions as the new mayor from residents on these roads about the deplorable condition of the roadway, and they are deplorable. They've only gotten that much more deplorable, I can assure you, in 7 years. And after doing some research, I hit a brick wall in that there was this order from, at that time, a decade ago, on the books that effectively, until all of the residents got together, surveyed the property at their own expense, and deeded the properties to the city couldn't touch them. And from time to time, as I've fielded complaints through the years, I have tried and tried again to find a way that we could do something with the roadways. Because what's happened is all of the gravel has dissipated on the road through the years where it's gotten no new gravel. So you've got a dirt road that is eroding and cars are going down the middle of it, hollowing it out. that doesn't have any drainage on the side, so the roads are becoming ditches. And these people still have to get to and from their house, and it functions as a roadway, even though it's never been a public roadway. And I'll be honest with you, as somebody who's elected into a position of trust to try to make sure that the public functions function the way they're supposed to. I've never been able to get comfortable with that. So the president of the Board of Supervisors contacted me last summer. Frankly, I didn't expect to advance this any further than I'd ever advanced it before. But I told him, I said, well, let me give it one more good try with the city attorney, tell him to be extra creative and see what he can come up with. And with those directions, the city attorney said, well, you know, here's an opening, given the situation that is a little outside of the box from what we would typically do, but I think we could do it. And that's the process where we would actually do the survey work, and then we would offer an opportunity to get quick claims from the owners. I say all of this to say, while I'm sure Alderman Perkins is certainly pleased that there's something that's an issue in his ward that's getting resolved, I took this to him, and it's not a project that he picked. But I don't feel like I've hidden the ball at any stage on this, because when it was ready, I came in and I explained exactly what the situation was. I explained exactly what the interlocal agreement with the county would do, and what the road maintenance work would be after we did it. And after having that explanation, y'all approved the resolution that laid out this process. And we've done nothing but follow the resolution, which the resolution not only sets out the steps for the process, but it gives us an obligation to make improvements to the roadway once they're conveyed to the city. The language that's used is the city shall improve and maintain the roadways. Now, to be fair, it gives you total discretion as to how you want to maintain it. But in my mind, this is the bare minimum maintenance that we can do on that roadway. So we've gone and we've told all of those property owners, if you deed us a piece of your property, we'll come and we'll make this situation better. And this is the point where we do what we said we would do, and we make the situation better. You know, the time, if you didn't want to do this, to have this discussion, would have been September 6th. And sure, I would have been upset on September 6th if you had decided that you wanted to go no further with this matter, but it wouldn't have been this. This is getting all the way to the end after people have been effectively promised something by the city and saying we're not going to do it. And that, in my book, is just not right.
Okay, Mayor, I guess, let me go over something. When I took office, there were a couple of areas in my ward that had been annexed into the city, but certainly they had not been addressed. Along with myself and the city engineer, I assessed my ward completely. And I knew that going forward, I need to have something in place that if the funds became available to me, that I could address those problem areas. I represent Highland Estates. They had been overlooked in every way. That area now has seen some overlaying. Deerfield residents were annexed into our city, had been overlooked. That complete neighborhood has been overlaid now and looks really good. In 2015, we each had a total of $90,000. In September 2016, this board gave itself $280,000, $40,000 per alderman. In less than 3 more months, Vice Mayor Perkins brought forward to us a request that we give ourselves $35,000. And that night, I thank him for bringing that forward, because he wrestled to convey that we really needed this money. And I think that he wasn't going to put his motion on the table for fear that the votes might not be there. And I took that upon myself to put that on the table because I wanted to see that passed, and it was passed. So having said that, in less than 3 months, we have received $40,000 one time, September 2016, and then another $35,000. So that brings me to this question tonight. Does the vice mayor have any of his discretionary funds available that he might could use toward this?
I don't know the exact amount of that line, but I can tell you, it does not approach this.
Mhm. Having said that, I want to be supportive of every alderman it is, because certainly Ward 2 has benefited every way with the support of this board. I had some problems with Airport Road, was getting calls that was an area that I needed to address. I didn't have the money going forward to address Airport Road, and Mr. Engineer, you know how they were wearing me out about that. And what I did as an alderman, I worked with our county supervisors, and they paved Airport Road for me at absolutely no cost. So having said that, I think sometimes we have to work with our neighbors across the way that maybe our city doesn't incur any monies. I think that if we had worked with our county supervisors over there, that they would have probably perhaps done this at no cost to our city mayor. I believe that in my heart. I'm going to yield the floor, and what I'm going to do before I yield the floor, I'm going to go ahead and support this measure tonight. I'm uncomfortable with it, but I want to see it done for those residents out there in that area. I yield the floor at this time.
Further discussion, Alderman Carver, did you have your hand up?
Probably answered this earlier, but I would say by acting on our design, this probably happened in an election year. It's one of those that I think each and every alderman here would fight for their own constituents, and to see the street improvement fund not really distributed fairly is something that I'm not supportive of. Having myself lived on Roundhouse Road, I know exactly what the deplorable situations you are talking about. And why was this not addressed? These are all properties of the 1998 annex, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what has the delay been in that ward for all these years? Because it has been deplorable. No, it's just, I got the floor. But, I don't know, I mean, you know, I don't think anybody wants to see somebody not get their road gravelled and graded, but it's just, you know, to say that we're gonna all take a pot of money and go to one ward. If it all went to Ward 1, I would have to hear about it. If it all went to Ward 2, we would all hear about it, you know, but call a spade, and that's what it is. So, thank you.
All right, Alderman, when I see you, hold on, I'm gonna
Okay.
respond to Alderman Carver's comments, and then I recognize you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Alderman Carver, in response to the question of why hasn't anything happened since 1998, there was an order passed on August 6th, 2002, with respect to all those roads except Roundhouse. I don't have any idea why Roundhouse was left off of the order, because it's in the exact same condition as the rest of them.
What year was that?
It went out.
2002?
2002. And that order made these public roads and authorized certain improvements to them conditioned upon the landowners recording and landowners of record conveying right-of-way deeds to the city. That requires a survey to describe what the property is. And this is the order that was established, that essentially established the impossible mandate. But it was never going to happen, it is the answer to that. So until we change this effectively with the resolution, where instead of requiring them to go out and privately survey, draw up deeds and bring all of that to the city, we facilitated the process where they could quit claim the property. That was the bar. Legally, we could not do anything to touch the roads until just a moment ago when you accepted this road. You still can't do anything with the other four until you accept them. I do remember one other comment, and that's just for the future. I won't be here when y'all are discussing these matters. I've held back on offering this criticism because it has functioned okay for the last 3 years. But I do think you should reconsider dividing your funds for capital improvements but 7 ways among 7 wards. It is a very inefficient practice for building the city's infrastructure. Again, one positive benefit of it during this term is I will say we have had less turf battles and fights over which streets were getting paved than we did in the previous 4 years. And for some time, maybe I even convinced myself that that was an okay trade-off for the inefficiencies of it. But I think the point this discussion has gotten to brings me all the way back to the point that it's not a good long-term practice to divide the resources that way. So for whatever advice you want from me for the next 4 years, I think it would be a good idea to reconsider that. Alderman Wynn.
And let me say this, I think all of us want to be treated fairly, because certainly Ward 2 has just gotten all, and I thank the board for its support. My ward looks so different from when I took office 3.5 years ago, and I want to be instrumental in helping every board member have the success that I've had in my ward. Certainly I do, but certainly our wards and our needs for our wards differ. But this question, Vice Mayor, if you don't mind me asking, have you used all of your discretionary spending funds, or have you gotten them earmarked for some projects?
Alderman Perkins, do you wish to yield to that question?
Mayor, you're doing a great job explaining it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much. That was just a simple question that I asked the Vice Mayor, had he used his discretionary fund, and then he's going to say that the mayor has done a great job, and he couldn't answer that question, and the funds were given to him, $40,000 and another $35,000, and here I am trying to be supportive of him tonight. Mayor, I yield the floor on that.
I'd just like to echo what you said. I think we're at the point, and I can't speak for the next board, but I think we're paving sections of streets. We're not paving streets. We're putting Band-Aids on problems, dividing the money like we've been doing. That's why I've kind of, talked about it a little bit tonight, because that's the way we've been doing the last couple of years. Now, well, we put the brakes on and we're going this route. And I'm going to support these people. We've made that promise to them. We're going to do that. They should have no less expectations. They're taxpayers, and they're going to deed that over to us. We need to address it at minimum. But that being said, going forward, we can't continue to fix these roads. If Alderman Bone down there has a road that's in dire need, we need to pave that road. We need to fund that line item for capital improvements much better than we have been, and get the road list developed. And I've talked briefly with Mr. Kemp about that this week. We need to get that developed and prioritize the streets and drains like we did when we came in here, and have a road map. And you can tell someone when they call and say, well, my road's looking bad. We can look at that list. So, well, you're looking at 2018 or 2019 resurfacing that road. And trust our city engineer to come up with that list, and then go through it as a board and act. And whatever ward it's in, we can do more together than trying to break it up into $50,000 a year or $85,000. We're not getting nothing done like that.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. All those abstaining, please signify by raising your hand. Alderman Carver, I didn't get a vote.
Yay.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. It is unanimous.
Gotta go through.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, Alderman Maynard.
Mayor, I'd like to amend the agenda to add an item K and L, consideration of the warranty deed facilitating dedication and acceptance of Hendricks Road as a public road in the city of Starkville. And then L, consideration of grading and graveling Hendricks Road in a joint effort with Octavia County, consistent with the resolution passed by the Board of Alderman on September 6, 2016, interlocal cooperative agreement between Starkville and Octavia County relating to road maintenance and mosquito abatement dated October 3rd, 2016, and then putting letters I, J, K, and L on consent.
All right, so let me take these in parts. Without objection, we're going to add K and L to the agenda. Seeing no objection, items K and L, which were listed in italics because they were came in late and they were provisional items for the agenda. So those items have been added to the regular agenda now. And Alderman Maynard has made a motion to place items I, J, K, and L on the consent agenda. Let me just ask if there's going to be an objection before I read those.
I do.
All right, so with an objection, we'll go into discussion on item I, the consideration of the warranty deed facilitating dedication. Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve the warranty deed facilitating dedication and acceptance. Oh, it's Walker. Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve the warranty deed facilitating dedication and acceptance of Roundhouse Road as a public road in the city of Starkville, Mississippi, as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes. The next matter on the motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of grading and graveling Roundhouse Road in a joint effort with Octave County, consistent with the resolution passed by the Starkville Board of Alderman on September 6, 2016, and interlocal cooperative agreement between Starkville, Mississippi, and Octave County, Mississippi, related to road maintenance and mosquito abatement dated October 3rd, 2016, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is the motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the warranty deed facilitating dedication and acceptance of Hendricks Road as a public road in the city of Starkville, Mississippi, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, please speak on the merits.
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is consideration of grading and graveling Hendricks Road in a joint effort with Octave County. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of grading and graveling Hendricks Road in a joint effort with Octave County, consistent with the resolution passed by the Starkville Board of Alderman on September 6, 2016, and interlocal cooperative agreement between Starkville, Mississippi, and Octave County, Mississippi, relating to road maintenance and mosquito abatement dated October 3rd, 2016, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion? Yes, it is. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, speak on the merits.
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a report from the Director of the Department.
Excuse me, wait a minute, can I say something?
You may.
If any of you never been down those roads, you can't even get an emergency vehicle in there. If one of those people gets sick, or the fire truck need to get in there, they might make it and they might not make it. That's just how bad those roads are. I mean, I thank Mayor and all of you for doing it, but that's just how bad those roads are. I mean, we taking a chance with somebody's life simply because we can't get in there. And again, go back to this big piece of this money. I talked to Mr. Kemp about this big piece of this money for these streets. I talked to Scott Maynard, I talked to Perkins. We do not need to do that. We cannot continue to overlay the streets in the city, putting 35,000 here, 30,000 there. You can't do it. I'm half overlaying streets right now. I got 3 streets and a half overlaid simply because we do not have enough money to overlay the street completely. We cannot do that. Thank you for the comment that you made on Mr. Mayor. I hope we don't take anything from you. I hope we take that advice from you.
Yes, sir.
I yield the floor.
I don't think, I don't have, I think having lived on Roundhouse myself, I understand the conditions more than anybody at this table. I think this is shady politics. I think the hypocrisy up here is appalling to the fact that we're going to not have a consent agenda and then we're going to try to throw, of all, to not allow things to be put on the agenda at the table. We allow that, then we try to place it on consent. I mean, everybody in the room knows what's going on. At this point, and to get the warranty deeds is hard enough. But at this point, it's almost, if you don't vote it in, it's you look like you're doing a disservice to the constituents of Ward 6. That's not what this is. This is just a show. It's not that at all. I think anybody up here, my point on the conversation was more, this is just shady politics, and this is something for show. This is something in election season. When you got the most vocal person on the board that won't say anything. I mean, I think we're all in this room, besides the camera, everybody else in this room knows what's going on, but does it need to be done? Yes, it needs to be done. Could have been done years and years ago. Yes, it could have been done. But more than that, just, yeah, we're gonna have to look at some of those line items we just talked about. We're gonna have to look at some of those pots of money, like you were just saying, Alderman Bone, and look at some, there's different theories on that. But I mean, as long as I'm representing my constituents, dividing it 7 ways is the fairest way to me. And I understand what you're saying. There's 2 sides to it, so I just think this could have been done in a little better way. And of course, the roads need to be paved. They need to be paved 10 years ago, or graded and graveled at that. So, thank you.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Alderman Carver, the reason the last 2 were added was because the quick deed were just signed today. They weren't left off the agenda. They weren't on the agenda because the quick deed has not been signed until today is the reason they were asking. The reason I was going to throw them all on consent was I thought that might speed up the process so I could get home before midnight. But
So there was some time. Yes, sir.
All right, are we ready for Ms. Gandy? Does anybody else have any comments before we go? Ms. Gandy, we're ready for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor's Board. I've been asked to give an update on the status of the reopening of the landfill. We have recently submitted paperwork and all of the necessary permitting documents to DEQ that consist of a build-out plan that would allow us to move into a new sale. That information should have been already received. We emailed it to DEQ, so they should already have an official copy. We're going to forward that with a hard copy that will go to them. Once they have approved it, and I have no idea as to when they will approve it, but before we can move into another sale, we will have to have their approval, and they will have to accept the new plan going into the new sale. So currently, we're still in the permitting phase, and we're still in the process of waiting for those permits to be approved.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Ball.
You say we have no idea when?
No, so the only thing that we can do is to submit to DEQ to move us, to allow us to go into another sale.
I know I probably should like to let you know, my constituents constantly calling me, when and why we getting that to happen, when it's gonna open back up, quick as you can find out. I appreciate it. You just try to contact all of us and let us know so we can try to get our constituents.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Are there any further questions? Alderman Burke.
Mr. Mayor, very briefly, I'll join in with the gentleman from 7. I have received a lot of comments from not only my constituents, but from other taxpayers about this landfill being closed. And it has been closed since September the 20th of 2016, and I do not ever recall it being closed during my almost 24 years on the board. So hopefully we can get this landfill open rather quickly and expeditiously. The citizen having to drive to Clay County, paying about $23.50 approximately per ton, and it's also impacting our city staff. Some of our departments having to drive out there. So, like has been said, we just need to get this landfill open. It's getting springtime, so hopefully we can get it open soon. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Gandy. The next matter on the agenda is discussion and consideration of authorization to advertise for potential candidates for vacancies.
They move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve the advertisement for potential candidates for vacancies in Wards 6 and 7 for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is first public hearing of proposed. Is that your motion? Yes. Motion has been made by. Well, we gotta have the public hearing, don't we? That is the public hearing, right?
We should be having a public hearing.
Yeah, okay, this is the public hearing. Mr. Sanders, could you come forward and introduce this matter? This is the proposed change in the zoning ordinance to include specifications for design and construction of retaining walls in the city of Starkville.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Alderman. The proposed ordinance change is essentially adding language to the current facade standards for R5, C2, C1, B1 zones, stating that all retaining walls visible from public right-of-ways or adjacent to zoned residential properties shall meet requirements, essentially dressing them up. Concrete retaining walls shall be finished with an approved stamped concrete, patterned brick, natural stone, artificial stone, or stucco. All retaining walls 6 feet tall or less shall have a coping or cap on the top of the wall. Concrete masonry units or retaining walls shall be finished with brick, natural stone, artificial stone, or stucco, and shall have a coping or cap on top of edge of the wall. Segmenting retaining walls shall be tinted with a subdued natural or earth tone colors that fit in the context of the surrounding property. Wooden retaining walls shall not be permitted. As I said before, this language will be added to the existing facade standards for R5, B1, C1, and C2 zoning districts.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll hear any public comments. Are there any public comments at this hour in the evening? Anyone that wishes to make a comment may do so by coming forward. You'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any comments? Any comments? Seeing none. Are there any concluding comments by the members of the board? Any concluding comments by the members of the board? Seeing none, that will conclude this, the first public hearing. Do I hear a motion to calendar a second public hearing? Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of holding a second public hearing on the proposed change in the zoning ordinance regarding retaining walls to be held February 21st, 2017. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Was that Carver?
Yes, sir.
Motion's been seconded by Carver. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda, the motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of a commercial burn ban permit for Randy Whitbeck to burn clear debris associated with future construction project at 303 Lynn Lane to occur behind Starkville Christian School as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of travel and training for Jeff Lyles to attend the Mississippi Association of Code Enforcement Educational Conference in Meridian, Mississippi, with a cost not to exceed $450 as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is discussion and consideration of PP 16-19. Discussion. Would you like Mr. Sanders to introduce?
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to, oh wait, we covered that. Yeah.
We're done.
All right, the next matter, update on the status of property located at 711 Vine Street. Mr. Sanders?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Board of Alderman. In October of 2016, it was found that illegal construction activity has taken place on the north half of 711 Vine Street. At the November 15th, 2016 Board of Alderman meeting, the the Board of Alderman gave staff directive to work with Sonic towards a site plan and a curb directing traffic only to the northbound portion of Vine Street towards Highway 12. With when the site plan is submitted, Sonic having 15 days to finish construction. The week of December 18th, 2016, staff met with the engineer hired by Sonic to review issues pertaining to a site plan. At that time, staff raised the concern that it was going to require a conditional use if a dumpster and parking was allowed on in the area. We essentially gave the applicant or the property owner the option of either busting up the concrete or pursuing with a conditional use. We gave that information to their council. Their council then asked staff in January of this year if a conditional use was going to be required because the placement of a dumpster was mentioned at the Planning and Zoning Commission when the property was rezoned in 2014. It was my opinion, along with the mayor's, that the rezoning was a rezoning decision, not a conditional use. So it was communicated to their council in January, and recently their council has stated that they desire to go through the conditional use process and submit a conditional use application. If I do not receive such an application by the end of the month, I will issue a letter giving them 30 days to correct the situation. And if such application has not been turned in, then summons for court will be issued.
Questions or comments for Mr. Sanders? Any questions or comments for Mr. Sanders? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
The next matter before you, motion has been made by Alderman Little, Alderman Carver to approve of travel and training for Buddy Sanders to attend 2 of 4 core classes required by the International Economic Development Council for certification. One of the 4 classes, Basic Economic Development, was completed September 2016 with 2 additional elective classes being required and 1 meeting prior to July 1st, 2017 being approved. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Alderman Little.
If there's no objection, I would like to offer up item C, engineering, everything under there, 1 through 5, on the consent, and under D, finance administration, items 2, 3, and 4 for consent. And I understand we've got some executive session stuff coming, so considering the time tonight.
All right, before I read these items, is it going to draw an objection? You may.
It has gotten a little late, and just in deference to the board, I mean, I got a lot of energy left, but for my colleagues, I'll go ahead and approve.
All right, is there anybody else that's going to object?
Mayor, no, certainly all of us have some energy, but looking at time and our department heads, many of them travel out of town. Our city clerk has to go to Upora. Somebody has to go to Tupelo. We need that. Thank you. I yield the floor.
All right. Chris, can I do these all without objection, or do I need to create a consent agenda? All right, so without objection, the following matters will be placed on the consent agenda. Request for approval to purchase tree bags from forestry suppliers as presented. Request for authorization to add portions of Hancock Street, Shadowwood, and Brookwood Street to the 2017 street improvement list as presented. Request for authorization to add portions of Nelson Street and to the 2017 street improvement list as presented. Request for authorization to accept the low quote from Terry Stidham Construction in the amount of $27,760 as presented. Request for authorization to purchase deep root, tree root barriers for tree planting project along Lynn Lane at a cost not to exceed $5,000 as presented. Request for approval of the list of Starkville Police Department unmarked cars for fiscal year 2017 as required by Mississippi Code 251-87 as presented. Request for approval of a contract with NCBA, the National Caucus and Center on Black Aging, formerly Experience Works, Incorporating, accepting any and all changes by the city attorney, otherwise as presented. Request for approval of the election commission agreement with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, incorporating any and all changes recommended by the city attorney, otherwise as presented. Without objection, all of those items will be placed on the consent agenda. Do I hear an objection? Well, he withheld the claims document.
Good, that's good. Thank you.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, all of those matters have been added to the consent agenda. Are there going to be any other matters added to the consent agenda? All right, so without objection, the consent agenda will be approved. Is there any objection to the approval of consent agenda? Any
Make a
objection?
motion to add everything under H was left.
All right, is there going to be an objection to that before I read them all?
No, sir.
All right, the following items without objection would be added to the consent agenda. Approval and adoption of a job description presented for an internal affairs officer. Authorization to reorganize the city's drinking water division by allowing Sean Johnson to oversee both water O&M and the drinking water division. Also authorize the expansion of job duties of Casey Johnson by allowing Mr. Johnson to have dual responsibilities as the warehouse manager and working as a water operator as presented. Authorization to hire 2 interns to work with the Starkville Utilities Department during the spring and summer as presented. Without objection, those matters will be added to the consent agenda.
I don't have an objection, I just do have one point of clarification before we put that on the consent agenda. Mr. Kent, Mr. Terry Kent, sorry. When we have the one where we're talking about changing the job description, how does that impact? One was this, let's see, assigning new job duties to Mr. Johnson and others. How does that fit in with in terms of upgrade in pay and fitting in with the progression plan? Does it factor that in?
Well, both, Mr. Casey, Casey Johnson is already a water operator certified. We need to use his capability in this one. The upward, I guess you'd say, mobility that we talked about, progression plan, is not really a focus on this particular employee. If I'm answering your question.
It is, and I guess that's...
It more deals with our O&M side of the operation, basically through our maintenance workers, our operators, up through our foreman category. So, and that particular one is the warehouse position is not in that category. But since he's been there, he's taken on a lot more responsibilities from Casey's standpoint.
Right, I guess that's my question. So we're assigning and taking on a lot more responsibility, and how are we compensating for that additional responsibility?
15% increase.
15% on the top of the existing side.
That's right. And I think that will make us allow us to get to that point right now. He's willing to do it.
Thank you.
Alderman Little.
Was item K under Utilities Department added, K1, was that?
It was not added.
I would like to add that one. I didn't want to get greedy earlier, but.
All right, in addition to the matters,
I just want to make sure he stays at the podium so I can ask him a question.
in addition to the matters that are already pending for the consent agenda, Alderman Little would also like to add approval of the lowest and best bids received January 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2017 for source of supply listing for Starkville Utilities as presented. So all of those items, and to recap, it's everything under engineering everything but the claims docket under finance and administration, everything under personnel, and the one item under utilities are all pending for the consent agenda. Next, Alderman Perkins, do you have questions you'd like to ask Mr. Kemp?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I was not going to raise the question, but the gentleman from 4 asked a very good question to clarify. I'm still not clear on that. So, but one of the employees, I think Sean Johnson, just get a 10%.
Correct.
And the other gentleman only gets, Mr. Casey Johnson only get a 15%. And when I read the motion in the packet, it was not written very clearly, so I didn't want to assume that, but I'm glad the gentleman from 4 asked that question. He's asked some very good questions, but thank you, gentlemen, but I'm clear now. And the record needs to be clear on that, because when you read it, it's not really clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No problem, thank you.
All right, is there any objection to adding all of those items to a consent agenda? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, those items have been added to a consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of that consent agenda? Any objection? Any objection? All right, seeing none, those items on your consent agenda have been approved. And the next matter before you is a request for approval of the claims docket.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Utilities Department as of February 1st, 2017, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2017, as presented. Alderman Maynard, that's your motion? Yes, sir. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the matter? No, sir. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Claims docket.
All right, so I have 6 in favor with 1 against, Perkins being a lone dissenting vote. And that will conclude the open session portion of the agenda. Motion has been made by Alderman Little to go into closed session to determine whether there's a need for executive session. That motion actually doesn't require a second. Is there any discussion? Saying no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The board's now going to move into closed session. I'll ask everyone to vacate the room so the board can begin closed session deliberations and determine whether